You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa. So. Karibuni to all of you that are watching or to all of you that are already signing. It's amazing how even when we introduce the show, we already have 50 people connecting in 1 second. This is amazing. I want to congratulate all of you. I mean, your support for the Pan-African Daily or your contribution in the nation building of our continent is enormous. I can't thank you enough for your contribution and your support. Yes, today is a very special day. Like we already announced, we are here to celebrate our legend. And like we said on the Pan-African Daily TV, it is not an African attitude that we only celebrate the death when they transit, because we know we don't die anyway. But what we do is show respect, pay honor, learn about their work, learn about their engagement, appreciate them, honor them, glorify them, show them that aspect of we do understand, we know you, we see you, we hear you, we've learned from you. There is no better way to do it when our legends, ourselves are still alive. It is very, very un-African that we go to talk about the ideology of our ancestors when they transit. That is very un-African. I think Professor Jume is here. He's going to also testify that with me. That is also not an African construct. What happens with us is when someone passes on, we celebrate that passation, that transition. But to honor that person, to pay respect to his work, we do it when he's alive. So we celebrate ourselves when we are alive. But in today's culture, or in inherited cultures, foreign cultures, we go when they transit and we start talking. He was a good man. He was a generous person. He was. No. In our African setup and indigenous African culture, and our values, we celebrate ourselves when we are alive. That's why from the birth of a child to every stage of his life, we celebrate, because we celebrate their life, their contribution, their donation, their engagement, their works. So today is not going to be different. Today we're celebrating Baba Dr. Leonard Jeffries Jr. He clocked 85 and very strong. He would be joining us because he's the celebrant. But before he joins us in, let's say, because the secretary told us they're running late, let's say in 45 minutes, we already have those that are celebrating his work with us here. So tonight we're going to be starting with Professor Jume, whom you all know. And then we are going to get Professor Baina Bello join us. King Bongane was already here to do the sound check because he comes in with Queen Ginone at the end to do the royal blessings of our brother and our elder and our father. So that's the way we are going to follow up. Like we said, anything that was not practiced in ancient Africa is none of our business. So in us to correct and change and create our stories, we have to do accordingly to how our ancestors, to how our own history, not their history, our story teaches us to do. We're
Absolutely.
starting to put these things into practice today in the Pan
Absolutely.
African Daily. We will never come here when we are talking about those that have transited, maybe to those that never. But now that all our elders and even us are still here, we're going to celebrate our work every minute, every time we have the chance. So that when we transit, it's going to be a very great celebration of happiness and joy. We're not going to regret anything because we already shared that space of honor, isn't it? So I
Absolutely.
want to welcome all of you. Thank you for joining. And I want to thank, I start with our Professor Faye, who is here. Professor Faye, good evening. And thank you for joining in this evening to share the great works of Dr. Baba Leonard Jeffries Jr. Now, we want to just you to open up this celebration day of today to tell us a little
Absolutely.
bit about him, how you get to know him. What is it that the young people should know about him? I mean, when we
Absolutely.
talk about Pan-Africanism and history of freedom fighters and liberation movement, we talk mainly about those that are gone. What about those that
Absolutely.
are still here on the
Absolutely.
continent or in the diaspora? If you ask, who is Dr. Leonard Jeffrey? What do you
Absolutely.
think, or what would you want people to know and to have this today and forever? That these are one of the champions of the Black movement everywhere that we're talking about an engagement of 60, 70 years. So they started their engagement for the liberation movement of Africa at a teenage age up till now, but Africans don't know about them. We celebrate
Absolutely.
order, even imperialists more than them.
Absolutely.
We know even our colonialists and even the enemies of Africa more than our legends. How insane is this? So, but we're
Mhm.
changing the narrative, not just by saying we have to change the narrative, we're just doing it. We're just starting to do everything the way we were, our own stories and our traditions. Baba Jume, you're welcome. Over to you.
Greetings, my dear sister, Dr. Tata.
Thank
Greetings
you.
to all those who are listening. Your listeners who are very, consistent in making this show a possibility because they hear and then give you the courage and to listen. But I'm going to dovetail a little bit in what you say that we Africans celebrate people while they are alive. You know, when they're dead, we do something else. You know, but we continue indeed. And I will touch on that. Uh, in our history, we create songs for people like Jeffries who are alive so that they can know how appreciative we are of what they have done. In Africa, the youth, at least in my nation, the Serer, the youth is in charge of, we divide in age class, in age classes,
Mhm.
and based on when you had initiation. Once you initiated, 6 years after you are initiated, then your class age become the one in charge of the village or the county or in many different levels. Entertainment, you know, they do. They do also cleaning. They do also self-help, like elder people who, like Jeffries, are contributing. They receive, let's say, people gather, the youth gather and go, till their fields on their behalf, as a token of what they have done for their society. They organize dances at their houses, to and make songs. And even actually, they do like, these many people. You have to find somebody who could imitate exactly his voice and talk exactly like him and walk exactly like him and kind of like
Exactly.
personalize him in
Yes.
the different events. It's like kind of like jokes, but at the same
Yes.
time it shows you, his character. you know so when he is talking and you're not looking, you would think that the imitator, when they talking and he's not there, you will think that it's him really who is there, talking. We have many different ways of, while the person, they will laugh about it themselves, they will know that they have a life that is well accomplished, that they were not a failure to the society. And then, but then after they pass away, they go to the ancestors. We don't stop there. When we talk about saints in the concept of Christianity, that started with us. The concept of saint started with us. It didn't start with the Europeans. When we talk, like in my nation, we talk about Pangol, Pangol and Fangol. Pangol are people who have done, really good for their community. And when they pass, they become the intermediary between us and God, Rogue, God, who we for many years in most African cultures, monotheism is always there, has been there since Egypt, since Akhenaten, have been here. So, we consider them as saints, and we create a place where we could go and converse with them, bring milk or kill cows or things, where we could go and do things. Europeans could not understand that. So they say that this is, but the reality is that we treat very well people who have contributed to really enhancing their society, like Dr. Jeffrey has done. And this morning, yesterday's only, I was talking to Julius Garvey, Marcus Garvey. I told him that last time I was in Jamaica, I was explaining to Jamaican that Garvey is a Pangol right now. He is a saint, that no one think anywhere else. He is at the same level than St. Paul, St. Jude, whatever you want to call them. They are saint, and we have languages, we have words for that, and meaning that it's forever. But to come back to Dr. Jeffrey, I know of Dr. Jeffrey, almost as soon as I arrived in New York in the late 80s. I heard about his name, but I really did not get to know him until almost, no, actually beginning of the 90s, because his department that he was the head of at City College was the headquarters almost of the anti-apartheid fight outside anywhere else. And also there was at that time there was also this time when Somalia was really being broken apart. There was a sister there, Samad Matias, who was a teacher there, who was very involved in this fight against and she was one of the person working for teaching in the department of Dr. Jeffries. This is when I knew of him, and then later on in my doctoral, when I was doing my PhD, I needed to take some of the classes, in different colleges, some in Columbia University, some in Hunter College, in my school, but also many at the City College itself, because only them offer really a perspective and a study on Pan-African. This is how I really get to know of his work a whole lot better. Now, what I could tell you, and then later on, I get to know him personally. I have celebrated his birthday with him. In fact, about 2 years ago, I brought all this Senegalese chebujen, which you call jollof rice,
Yes.
to his birthday, and I was the one who brought the big pan of jollof rice with Brother Charles, and it was a fun celebration we had in New York. What I could tell you is that I have two things that I really think people need to learn from Jeffries. Okay, first of all, he is unwaverable, uncorruptible in terms of his commitment for the struggle for emancipation of African people and African Renaissance. That he is consistent, and on the other hand, also Dr. Jeffries is not like many, for example, blinded by radicalism. He is not. He understands who he is, but he does not, whether it is on the left or whether it is in anything else, he has respect for others. He doesn't call anyone a devil or evil or something, but he is clear about what he is about, for African Renaissance, African against African oppression. And in fact, that cost him his chairmanship of the department at City College, when he said, and was misunderstood, when he said that the Holocaust hasn't been worse than, there have been worse situation than the world Holocaust, the slavery. There have been many more people who have been killed in the slavery trade than there have been in the Holocaust, but no one talks about that. And people, of course, thought or accused him of belittling, which is completely wrong. But the Supreme Court of the United States gave him right, told him that yes, what you said absolutely has nothing to do with anything. That is absolutely true. So, and I know him in that sense. And I know of Dr. Jeffrey, one thing is that, and I was telling him this, he is a link with the generations of Sheikh Anta Diop, of Alioune Diop,
Yes.
Présence Africaine, And for those who don't know Présence Africaine, this is the place where many of those who were fighting for African independence in the early time of the independence movement, this is where they were in Paris. This is the place that published their work. For example, if it wasn't for Alioune Diop, no one would have known probably Sheikh Anta Diop at all, And Dr. Jeffries was involved with them. In fact, he was one of the first to translate the work of Sheikh Anta Diop into English,
Correct.
Civilization or Barbarism, for example. And he was close to Sheikh Anta Diop in that. He was involved in the Festival des Arts Nègres, which was in 1963. Him and his wife actually lived in Ivory Coast for a while and navigated Ivory Coast, Senegal, and all those countries, So he knew the Houphouët-Boigny's, he knew the Senghor, he knew the others all personally, and he knew Ali Selassie and all of them personally, and he could, from his perspective, he has the unique capacity to know exactly what was the intentions and the feeling of those, even though some of us call them reactionary in some field. Dr. Jeffrey could see in these people what their real intention, in Pan-Africanism. Because people confuse Pan-Africanism and some politiciring, which is different. He has been given the opportunity to be able to sort into that and see the true Pan-African value of a Senghor, of an Houphouët-Boigny, of a Ali Selassie, of a Modibo Keïta, of a Sékou Touré, despite their differences of opinion. And he knew them individually in a way, So that really people should, I told him once, Dr. Jeffrey, we really should have you organized ceremony or things where you could just come and tell us about just your life. Tell us just about your life, because your life is history itself, and it's
Correct.
educational for us, and it's that will be wonderful, because if you listen to him, you learn from so much, and it gives you a different perspective, really, on how Pan-Africanism really cut through many different political opinions, that how Senghor or how Houphouët-Boigny, he talks about the RDA, Rassemblement Démocratique de l'Afrique, which was one of the first, an anti-colonial party that was created by Houphouët-Boigny, who indeed was also a minister in the French government, and in a way, I mean, it's just complexity of the person, you see, the complexity of the person. You could contribute, but also in other ways, you could also be against. So let me just give you an example. Many mathematicians know that, or physicians know that Einstein, the father of the theory of relativity, was very reluctant about quantum physics. He could not. He thought that was a joke, at Princeton, But he was, I mean, Yet people still, celebrate him for what he has done. People, that's what Dr. Jeffrey can do because he knew these people. He could celebrate them on what they have done while acknowledging and knowing exactly what their weaknesses, their limits were, because these people are human beings. They're not, they're not, they're not gods. They make mistakes. Oh, God made mistakes. Senghor made mistake. Kwame Nkrumah made mistake. But you know it better if you live with them. You could see them, you could understand them as human beings, and you start to understand, oh yeah, they are just like me. They are just committed, and they could inspire me in my commitment. They're just committed, but they are. The last thing I would say about Dr. Jeffrey is that he is 85. I told him once that, Dr. Jeffrey, there are some of that are you that I call, for lack of other comparison possible, the Benjamin Franklins of the African Revolution, meaning you are the old people who are with us, who give us kind of make us feel, that we are on the right track. You give credibility to what we are doing. If it wasn't for Benjamin Franklin, the American Revolution would not have any chance of succeeding. He gave it credibility. So in that sense, I'm telling him, you, Professor Obenga, Peter Bailey, Molefi Aksante, and others, you are really here to give credibility to what we are doing. And this is why the PAFM, the Pan-African Fellows Movement, is so grateful to have you embrace it, as an alternative, as the most credible alternative to African liberation and restoration of sovereignty. So I could say a lot more about Dr. Jeffrey. He is really, we have a lot to learn from him, and we have to thank him. Dr. Jeffrey, we really, if you're listening to this, of course, we thank you for standing tall and standing straight, always ready for the revolution, ready for the African Renaissance.
Thank you so very much, Professor Jumei. And yes, that is the point. We can't even disagree any further. We know that you were so busy, but you came in to say yes. You want to show your face to talk about this legend and monument that is alive today. And so, thank you so much for being here, Mama Bello, Professor Bello, Queen of Haiti, Queen Mother. Everything that we have to say is also here. She has shown her face. Normally, we're a little bit late from the time that we gave to her, and she would just continue while we're waiting for Dr. Leonard Jeffries to join us. Like, we know he's a little bit late. He already signed in to apologize on that, but we know that the others or who would be joining in this celebration today are already waiting. So we'll just be talking about, his monument, his work, celebrating him while he is here with us. So thank you so much, Baba. Thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Yes, and we catch us very soon again. Blessings.
Absolute
Bye.
blessings. Forward. Happy birthday, Dr. Jeffries. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy Health Day. Yes. Thank
Keep up
you.
the good work, Dr.
Thank you.
Tata.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Good. So we have Queen Mother of Haiti, Mama Bello, is right here with us, and we are going to take her from the point of view where we started. Like, it is not African to celebrate when we transit. It is African that we celebrate and respect and show the works of our elders, even ourselves, when we are physically in the presence of that work. But when we transit, it is a celebration of, regaining the seat, like he said, Pangol, or being a saint, where he becomes a mediator between us and the Most High Creator. Mama Bella, welcome, and we thank you for being here.
The sound doesn't seem to be too clear, but I'm very happy to be here celebrating 85 years of hard work.
Yes.
85 years of working on behalf of the interest of our people
Hmm.
on the planet. Okay. To me, the term Pan African is not enough.
Yes.
It's not enough. We are all over the planet. We are the guardians of the planet. And people like Elder Leonard Jeffries has demonstrated that wherever the problem is, wherever there is a need for more knowledge, wherever there is a need for more research, that's where we are. And that is to me the greatest gift he has given to us, is to show us, yeah, I was born here in the Americas, but something's going on in IT. I want to be part of it.
Hmm.
Oh, I need to learn a new language in order to understand what's going on, then I will learn it. Something is going on in Senegal, something is going on in Ethiopia. I got to be part of it. I have to understand what's going on and I have to contribute whatever I can. And to me, that's the greatest lesson I have learned from Dr. Leonard Jeffries. Uh, I can never forget the image when on TV I saw this black man who was accused to be racist and blah 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 blah, and he's walking, big smile. The man smiles all the time, big smile, and 40 or I don't know how many books to demonstrate what he had to say. So to me, that's the picture that I will always have of Dr. J walking into court with all his books and to go explain whatever it was. And I know that ultimately, years later, nothing happened instantly. It took years before they ultimately say, yes, you are right. What you said is correct. So, tenacity, resilience, courage, those are the elements that Dr. Jeffries illustrate for us all the time. Kindness, smile. The man smiles all the time, no matter what.
Yes.
He came to IT a few years back to celebrate Desaline's birthday.
Hmm.
Yes. And well, we had very little means, a broken down bus, a car with no air conditioning. Yes, it was hot and dusty, and sometimes, after the rain, it was muddy. It didn't make no difference. Dr. Jeffrey's smiles never went off. Not once did I see him go, Mm-mm. He was just there, present in what was going on and participating all that he could. I would doze off. Sometimes, late at night, we're doing whatever. And Dr. J, mm-mm. He's not dozing off nothing. He's right there. You know, in our culture, we say when we celebrate our revolution around the sun, so the personal new year. It's the
Mhm.
personal new year every time you come to a new age, a new year. So we called it um, coffee harvesting. That's what we call it. When we say in Haitian, we say happy coffee harvesting. That's how we say happy birthday.
Oh, happy coffee harvesting. Okay.
Yes, because to us, every time you go around the sun one time, because that's what makes the year. You go around the sun,
Mm-hmm.
and every time you come back to the point where you first begun, the day you were born, first begun.
Mm-hmm.
So that's us 1 year. That's what they count as 1 year. We call it coffee harvesting.
Harvesting.
So
Okay.
yes, you have the opportunity to harvest one more time your coffee, because coffee comes around once a year.
Ah,
So, you know, and IT plants, have a lot of coffee or has had for a long time, a lot of coffee and some of the best coffee, in spite of, they won't talk about that. They choose to talk about other things when they talk about
correct, Mom.
IT. But Dr. J, you want to talk about Egypt? Talk to Dr. J. You want to talk about West Africa? Talk to Dr. J. The man has um, assembled a huge vocabulary of knowledge, a huge uh, amount of knowledge about our people wherever the Caribbean, South America. Oh, tell me, you might call him for such and say, no, I'm going to Colombia this week. I won't be available. And you say, wait a minute. 85 years old at the time. I was going to say 75, right? 85 years old. And the man is up and down the plains, up and down into everything, And we say, wow, what an example. What a track for us to follow.
Mhm.
I haven't heard him say, I'm tired. I've been doing this thing. I hear people 40 years old saying, oh, I've been doing all of this for all this time. And, right. And then we look at Dr. J, young, with that beautiful smile,
Bring
the
him in.
same steps, the step that I saw walking 40 some odd years ago into the court. Oh, my big brother is here.
Yes.
So the same step, the same lively, calm, serene, joyful steps that I saw years ago walking into that court. Confidence is the same steps that I see today when I look at him.
Mm.
I see the same smile, that same trust in a better tomorrow. And that is one of the things that I admire. And that's why I'm very, very happy to take the time to wish my elder, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, one more revolution, happy, accomplishing revolution around the sun. Happy coffee harvesting.
Exactly. Mama Bello, I wanted to say, is it possible? Because we have been looking, some people say happy Earth Day, some people, because of the too much melange. Now, I am very confident to say we can adopt the happy coffee harvesting because you've explained the going around the sun and we harvest the coffee once. What will you think about that? We don't have a vocabulary for that. We keep saying happy birthday. We don't even know.
It doesn't matter. You're speaking English. So if you say happy birthday, it can't, it's nothing wrong with saying happy birthday. You are speaking English. How about all the other English expressions that you're using that just don't fit your culture? So that's
Correct.
not the problem. If you're speaking French, you'll say bon anniversaire.
Bon anniversaire.
Right.
Oui.
Yes. And if you're speaking Haitian, you'll say, well, bon école café pour vous. You're still good.
Correct.
I don't think we have to be careful that we don't want to get into any straitjackets. We are in the process of getting out of enemy conditioning and going towards knowledge of self. None of us know self yet. But all we can ask of any of us is to be trying. We're trying to get back into self.
Mm.
So in the process, we will use a lot of expressions. We will speak a lot of languages. We will go from this to that and the other as we strive to become ourselves. No, I will not get into any kind of argument as to, oh no, we should all learn to speak Kiswahili, or we should all learn to speak Yoruba, or we should all learn. No. But if I have the opportunity to learn Kiswahili, I will. If I have the opportunity to learn Kikongo, I will. Because each one of those is part of me.
Mhm.
And I will strive. I'm striving to become myself.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to, from the get-go, say this is out and that is in.
Correct.
No. I have a huge continent. On my continent, I speak thousands of languages. The average person used to speak 12 to 20 languages. I only speak 3 or 4 or 5. Makes no sense. I'm limited. I cannot with authority say, must stop here. No. So, happy birthday, bon anniversaire.
Happy coffee harvesting.
Bon récolte café. All the great things to you, all the great energies, vibrations, and frequencies to you, my elder, Dr. Leonard Jeffries. And thank you, thank you, thank you so much for all you've done for all of us everywhere.
Ashe. Yes, yes, Queen Mother has spoken, and we can't even disagree anymore. Nothing to add, nothing to subtract. Thank you so much. I love the idea that you talked about the languages. We're still trying to even find ourselves. How do we even start talking about learning something else when we don't even know? What use or essence does it make? Professor James said it one time in one late videos of him. What use does it make for us to just say we need to look African, dress African, when our minds are still out of our bodies, are still not us? So we have to first of all find us. Every other thing would fit in place. Thank you so much, Mama Bello, for being here. We also love you so much, and we're looking forward to celebrate your happy coffee harvesting anytime soon. We'll be aware of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice day to you. Bye-bye, Mama. Thank you. Bye. So, like we all know, King Professor James Small is here, and Mama Bello called him Big Brother is here. Exactly like we're going to call Dr. Leonard Jeffries. They're all our elders, the big brothers, their fathers, their friends, their brothers, their husbands. You know, we just, this completeness is what we are celebrating today. And when we see our elders, you know, putting their mouth to say, this is the way we should go. Professor James, before you came in the beginning, I was talking about it is un-African that people think we only celebrate our people when they transit. And then we come and start reading long eulogies about them. If something happens accidentally or fine, or give a, you know, for those that didn't know him. But isn't it time now that we get into our senses that of our culture, ancient culture, celebrate, show respect, credibility, acknowledge, glorify, honor, and uplift the people essentially that has given up their lives in everything for the liberation of ourselves and the whole continent. Isn't it time? Welcome, Prof.
It's more than time. I mean, to say happy birthday today to Dr. Jeffries, to greet him for having gone through another 12 months cycle of the sun, and to wish that he have many, many more to do more work. Dr. Jeffries is, to me, one of the best example of African man. He's one of the best example of African father. He's one of the best example of African husband, African son. And I've seen him in all of these capacity. I've seen him with his mom and his dad. We've known each other for at least 52 years. And we worked together for nearly 50 years. So I've seen him with his father many, many times, many times. I've seen him with his mother and his relationship to his mother and his father. I've seen him with his relationship to his brother, to his nephews, his relationship to his cousins, no matter how distant. I've seen him with his relationship with his wife. I've seen him with his relationship to all of the children that he raised in the 2 Black Studies department that he headed in America, San Jose State in California, and Black Studies, Africana Studies at City University of New York, where he reared thousands of Black children who are now fathers, husbands, wives, grandparents, teachers, doctors, lawyers. I've watched them when he couldn't pay his own. He could have paid his own mortgage, but instead he took his mortgage to pay the tuition of a student who couldn't pay their tuition. Not one time, not two times, but multiple times over years. I've watched them give people a place to stay in his home when they didn't have a place to stay, or help them find a home. I've watched them reach to the continent. In the Africana Studies at City College, we had more continental Africans than any African studies in the world. From Nigeria, from Cameroon, from Ghana, from Senegal. I saw more Caribbean scholars than African American scholars working under his recruitment. His first deputy director was from Ghana. His second deputy director was from Dominica. I saw him bring the likes of Camaralai to this country. Akinjo out of Nigeria. Sheikh Anta Diop out of Senegal. Ababa from Congo, Brazzaville. Theophile Banga, and others. I've watched him and his wife. It's hard to separate them, even though it's his birthday. They've always moved like one people. They've always moved around the world together. They've moved through America, teaching our people together, helping to build organizations like AHSA and ASCAC, the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization, and the National Black Studies Associations, and others, to teach our people their history, their culture. This has been his work nonstop. I call and says, you need to turn that phone off and go to bed and get some sleep. And he gives me 10,000 reasons why he can't do it. Even though he's barely standing up from having read all night, going through documents as he's trying to put his archives together, hopefully to land them in Morgan State as one of the places, and maybe in the new museum coming in Ghana. So it's to talk about Leonard Jeffries is to really talk about the God man.
Yes.
He never showed himself to be very religious. I mean, he goes to the church at the family churches when there's events, or when there's sad events, when there's good events. He goes and supports everybody in the community. He supports the Christian. He supports the Muslims. He supports the Hebrew. He supports everyone in the Black community. Now, like me, I may be a little discriminatory, but Dr. J, no. He's just the God man. He's the real African man. He's a God man. We talk about the ancestors' knowledge of cosmology, ecology, and mimicking that as his character. Leonard Jeffries does that normally. He does that just breathing, and I think that's what his parents put into him, and his grandparents put into him, and his aunties put into him. He just breathed this African God man character and acts it out in his daily life. Never complaining. If I was to say right now, Dr. J, we're trying to get the salaries paid at the hotel, he'll find some way to get some money, and he can't fix the electrical system in his house that he needs that money for in the middle of the winter. And you have to tell him, no, you can't do nothing, or I have to stay away and don't accept, because he's like a total servant to African people. I've never seen anybody like him. A total servant. The only other person I can liken him to is Dr. King and Malcolm X. Just total servants to African people. And I know there was many others, like the Honorable Marcus Garvey, and then Patrice Lumumba, Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré. He belongs in that class. And he's at the head of the class.
Prof, it is, honestly, thank you. Because why is it, I don't know how I want to say. Anyway, how come that, you know, we don't know him? I mean, when I say we don't know him, not me or all of us that are here, how on earth would somebody leave this kind of legacy and legendary, extraordinary, like you say, the real African God man, and Africans don't know about
Because our enemy blocks the knowledge of people like him from our people. This is a man who's been traveling to Africa, have been to most countries in Africa since 1961, I think, or 62. I don't think he's missed more than 1 year, maybe 2 at best, being in Africa somewhere since 1962. When he was a young man, I think early 20s, he was traveling to 9, 10, 15 different African countries, helping to teach and to build schools and clinics and wells and other things.
God.
And no, the enemy don't want our people to know these kinds of models, these kinds of examples. And his wife was doing it before him. She was the one that led him into Africa. Till this day, they'll be going to Africa very soon together. Their whole life has been about freedom fighting. You know, freedom fighting isn't always carrying the gun in the bush. Some of us can carry the gun in the bush and like that. But some must carry the intellectual war to the world. Some must carry the cultural war to the world. And Leonard Jeffries has been the best at the best in carrying the cultural war, the intellectual war, the political war, the discussion of the economic war to the African world, and making renewed brotherhood wherever he goes on the continent of Africa, in the Caribbean, in the UK, into Canada, into the other islands, into Brazil. All of these places he's gone as the African God man and have been respected by our people there for his coming and his teachings. And of course, the enemy don't want a man like him to be the model for young Black men. You know, they would rather have a sports figure, not paying anything against, because we have some wonderful sports figures. Or they would rather have someone in the music industry. And we have wonderful people in those industries, good people. But to have a man who's a musician, by the way, also, he plays the saxophone. He was a ball player. He was an athlete and a good one. But he's always been a political leader, an intellectual leader, a cultural leader, and a spiritual leader by the way he lived his life. You know, by the way he lived his life. And we hung out all over Africa, all over America together over these decades. And he's wherever he went, no matter who the president of this organization or that school, he was always the leader of all the rest of us. Even when some of the other elders were there, a lot that we know about Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben and others is because of him. He was always that quiet guy behind the scene that made everything happen so that those other elders could shine. You know, I saw it in AHSA, the African Heritage Studies Association organization, which he helped to found with Dr. Clark. I saw it with ASCAC, the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization, which he started with Dr. Maulana Karanga, Jacob Carruthers, Dr. Asa Hilliard, and others. I saw it with political organizations in the city. If he walks into Newark, New Jersey right now, and the mayor is holding a key meeting, he will have to stop and recognize the presence of Dr. Leonard Jeffries. If he walked into the Black Caucus in Washington, D.C., and some of them are afraid to even identify with him because the whites in certain categories don't like his presence, they will stop that meeting and acknowledge his presence there. If he walked into one of the biggest Baptist church in Harlem, Reverend Calvin Butts, the Abyssinia, they will at some point in the service acknowledge his presence there. That's the way the people love him. You know, that's the way the people love him. And because he lives what he's teaching you. He's not a fake. He's not a fraud. He isn't trying not to be fake or fraud. He's just being this God man, this African God man. You know, and it's not hard for him because that's who he is. And so he's a model for those of us that want to teach and lead and set examples. Leonard Jeffries is the best model I know of the African father, the African husband, the African brother, the African friend, the African son. You know, and that's why I call him the African God man. Because that's the thing about God, is not about worshiping images in the sky or in the bush or anywhere. The thing about God is being the perfection you talk about.
All right.
So he just on time, and he is right here with us.
Okay.
And we are going to usher him in while we actually tell him these things in his face. But one thing that I'm thanking you, Professor James, you're also going to be here with us, is, you know, you're talking and then we see him. And it's not like this kind of conversations would happen when he's not more. And then we remember. But the culture that we're bringing now is exactly what you're saying. We're talking, like Mama Bello said, he was in Haiti and he had showed us all those pictures when he was there with his wife and stuff. And that incident about the car, it broke down and everything. So please let us welcome our celebrant, our legend, Dr. Baba Leonard Jeffries Jr. Okay, the camera, I think, Brother Charles Asukele, you have to adjust his camera. We're not seeing him.
He will be sitting down in a minute.
Okay.
Brother Charles.
Peace and blessings, Baba. How are you?
I'm good. Your beard is getting grayer than mine, son.
I know that's all the running around.
This young man doing this whole COVID has been right at the side of Mama Jeffries and Dr. Jeffries every day that he could to make sure they're all right. So he isn't just a tech man. He's really one of the sons of Africa, but over and above that, this brother,
das wir so bei der anderen kommen auch.
Enormous son to Dr. Leonard Jeffries, you know, and Sister Rosalind Jeffries. So he's a very important figure in Dr. Jeffries' life right now.
Yes,
don't let that go to your head. Be humble, but I'm telling the truth. And let people know that there are young men and young women who can come to the aid of the elders when they need it.
I say Dr. J just coming down the stairs. I think he might be grabbing one more thing before he sits down. But Sister Tata, thank you for putting this piece together. I've been listening on the way here. I heard Baba Jumai. I heard Mama Bello. And everything that they said is true. Even what Brother Smalls just said right now, there's I don't know too many people like Dr. J or Brother Small or Mama J. Well, actually, now I do know a lot of people because I know them and they've been part of my family for 32 years now, bringing me out as a young man in my 20s into a greater sense of African consciousness inspired by the words and life of Malcolm X. Dr. J for me has been a living Malcolm X. I said the other day that, you know, a lot of people don't understand the feelings of people, you know, those that were close to Malcolm, you know, how they would give their lives for him, how, you know, deeply, how deeply they felt his loss when he was assassinated. But I think my experience with Dr. J is I know their feeling because I would do the same thing for him that those people would have done for Malcolm in his lifetime. And so I didn't expect. I thought you were just going to have Dr. J on today and celebrate him. But this is this is beautiful, and I'm glad he's here to smell his roses while he's living, because we need to celebrate those who have given so much for our people. And Dr. J is at the cream of the crop, and what he's given for our people. Brother Smalls talked about his as a youth going into Crossroads, Africa, as a 20-year-old, and not just going in there as a young man and working, but actually being put in leadership positions once they saw that he was ready and he was prepared to do the work. With operations all over Africa, and as Baba Jumai was saying, he knew Haile Selassie, he knew Dr. Clark, he knew Shirley Graham Du Bois, W.E.B. Du Bois' wife. He was there in Ghana when Du Bois passed away. There's just so much. He's just about ready, so I'm gonna get up out of this seat. But I'm extremely grateful to you for bringing this information to especially our young brothers and sisters who may not have had access to him in previous years. And like Brother Smalls was saying, Dr. J don't slow down. 85 has not slowed him down one bit. We have to force him to slow down and take care of some things that are more high priority, because he, whenever people call him, they need assistance, they want a speaker, they're seeking counsel, he's there for the people. So we have to we have to remind him that, hey, you're 85 and you got to take care of these archives. You got to make sure that things are situated for God forbid if something happens. And the only thing that slowed him down was COVID, because if it wasn't for COVID, he probably would be in Atlanta or Texas or Haiti or somewhere else. But the man of the hour is here, so I'm gonna get up out this seat and let him speak for himself and take in all this love that y'all are giving. But thank you, Sister Tata, for making this happen.
Thank you so very much, Brother Asukele, for your kind work engagement. Baba Small already said, this is actually the transition. This is what normally we should do. Exactly. I mean, have ourselves sit down and look after our elders when they need us in everything that we. Hey, Baba. Baba is here. You put us, like I said.
Let me go get one thing.
You got one more thing to get?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I'll be right here.
All right. As you can see, he's not just here to celebrate, he's here to teach.
Oh, okay.
He's got one more.
He's here to work.
He's getting the arsenal. Those that know Dr. Jeffries, I think Baba Jumai said, Mama Bello said it, that you would see him with 40 books, 50 books. Well, I was one of those folks carrying the books, and we had suitcases of books. We have portfolios of images like this one, and he's going to go into this, so I'm not even going to explain it. I'll leave that to him.
Okay. We're
showing our people our living history. And so today he's going to give you some living history. He's going to talk about his experiences. Even as you celebrate him, he's going to still be teaching as what he is, a master teacher.
You put him alone. We're trying to adjust the sitting position where we want to put him in the focus. So definitely we'll have to give him the whole space while we listen to him as he comes in and gives us the teaching. Like you said, he's always working anyway. So while he will be there, you can post your comments, you can share your wishes. I'll bring it on the screen for him. And we're going to put it exactly in this position where Brother Charles is now, because he is the legend for tonight. And all of us are going to disappear behind the screen. But we'll be talking from behind and making the comments in case of anything that he wants to say. Just in case you should know about why we trying to touch the screen up and down is to set up actually the studio for him alone. Yes, now we can see, and if you look at, just take a whole look at his surrounding. It's the same thing when Professor James is here. You see the whole surrounding is already telling you that is the kingdom, that is the seat of His Majesty. Yes, Baba. Baba, happy birthday. Happy
Hey.
coffee harvesting.
Well, I'm glad that I'm still here and I'm still strong enough to make a contribution to our great struggle and our great march forward. And so I'm glad that you are still doing your thing wonderfully. So it's good to see the young people like yourself taking the lead and doing what we best and what we hope would happen. Our young people have to grow, but they need to grow with the support of the elders in the community, and that's the African tradition. So I want to say Madase in the Akan, that's thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for making this enormous contributions that you have made. And so if I have a few more days to be in this world to speak my special truth, I'm going to be glad and very satisfied. I don't need monetary rewards. I need the rewards of people working and growing and carrying on this enormous African legacy. Brother Charles has been blessed, but he's also cursed because, we intend to lay heavy stuff on him. And then he said, well, goodness, you should have done this 10 years ago. I'm getting older now, so I need to take a break like the rest of you elders. But there's no break. The struggle continues. And the struggle in Mozambique, with some of our people participated, they came out with a theme, which is a luta continua. In other words, the struggle continues. It finishes when you go into the ancestral realm. And then you have to do whatever you can from the ancestral realm. I am moved as I have been because of various ancestors in our family. So even though they may have gone to the other side, they still are working their magic in terms of giving us the courage to continue. Now, Charles, what is in there?
Apple juice.
Hold it, brother. We just can't accept a drink from anybody. Take a sip of that drink before. Hey, don't spill it all over yourself. Okay. Now we're gonna wait a few minutes to see whether he survives. If he doesn't, look, we had to do this. Professor Smalls was in the middle of it. My brother was in the middle of it. They were top people in terms of security. We had to have people take the drink before we drank it. This is what security is all about. And I used to make a joke of it, let them take a drink, and then that didn't end it. I said, we got to wait a few minutes to see whether they are standing or dropping. But no, Charles is part of the family now in a serious way, even though he'll probably get to heaven and say, you have to know what that brother put us through. He put us through some pressure. He put us through some processes that helped us. But we not only had him to worry about, we have our own families and associates that we have to take care of. So we try to tell people how do you manage time. If you don't know how to manage time and you waste a lot of it, then you're not going to be going too far. So you have to manage your time, and you have to manage the time of the people around you. You have to manage your surroundings. We're in a surrounding here that gives us great spirit power and a continuing force. We're not worried about millionaire this and a millionaire that. It's an African culture this and an African culture that. So here's to all of you who are sitting at your screens, wondering what this old man is going to say. And so, and here's to our sister who has given us a place to leave our messages. And here's to our ancestors who carved out a way for us, not to fail, but to succeed. And so we include the ancestral realm, those who have gone on. We include our current populations across the globe. We're global people. And we include the babies yet to be born because we have to prepare a way for them. So here's to all of you, from all of me, my wife, my brothers, my extended family, Sons of Africa like Brother Charles, so that it's not a celebration, it's a rededication. I have celebrations all the time. They give me the biggest cakes. The cakes have specially designed, and Charles got out of here without taking a picture of the last cake. Did you take a picture of that birthday? You did?
Yes, I did.
Oh, see, he's ahead of the game.
I didn't get you and Mama J with it, but I did take a picture.
Okay, good. See, we're so together. We take pictures of the birthday cakes because they're not normal birthday cakes. They are birthday cakes to give you an idea of how much respect we have for you and how much sacrifice we're willing to make since you made those sacrifices for me. Charles, give me the Marion's book over there. No, just straight. Look, no. Look, right there. Okay. See, he's getting tired. He can't. I'm just pointing to something within 2 feet of him, and to explain what I'm talking about. This is a birthday gift from a sister who is just wonderful. And she lost her husband a few years ago. He was a member of our staff, and then he joined another university at the City University. He traveled with us to Africa and to Brazil and other places. His roots are in the Caribbean. And so she just took time out to get the pictures that her and her husband had taken. And that's what she has said. Dear Dr. J, where's my glasses, Charles? They're up there somewhere. There's Dr. J. No, Charles, why are you going way in the back? Yeah. We don't have no glasses here?
No, I don't see them.
Oh, okay, well, we'll manage. Dear Dr. J, may God look down and bless you. We pray that you will stay nearer, and may the ancestors keep you doing your journey every day throughout the year. Love and blessings, Marion. And then the first photo. Brother Small mentioned that I got a chance to move around in the different spaces and places. And this one I love. It's not that my ego needs to be, but there's a Dr. J in Africa, where the people who respect us and love us treat us like we are part of their own. And so this is me in Ghana, and with the folks that helped to install us. Then the next page is our pilgrimage. We don't go to Africa for treats. We don't go to Africa for sweets. We go to Africa to get reinforced spiritually. Mm-hmm. And so when we had a class at Abyssinian Baptist Church, a 50-week class, at the end, at every week, you were asked to purchase a book, one on the Caribbean and one on Africa and Black America. So you had your choice. At the end of the 50 weeks, you had the 100 most important books about the African American, African Caribbean, African Brazilian experience. And so we didn't stop there. We had hundreds of people who came. I don't even know what we charged them. We usually don't charge for anything. We ask for donations, but we don't charge. And then at the end of the 50-week course, we went for several weeks on a pilgrimage to Africa, not on a joy, a jump and joy, shake your booty experience. We had that when Ghana said the day of return, want African people to come back. And so thousands of our people went to Ghana. They went to Ghana to party. They went to Ghana to show out. They didn't go to Ghana with a consciousness that said, you've got to give back. You have to support your ancestral foundation. You got to make a commitment. None of those people should have been allowed in Ghana without signing a pledge that we will do all that we can to help you in your development, all that we can to make this return meaningful, all that we can to spread what you've done in Ghana to the other African countries, and spread it even to Brazil and the Caribbean and to South America, because even South America and Central America, that's a part of us. Panama, Honduras, those are areas dominated by peoples of color who don't have the serious, strong African traditions that we have been. But you have to understand that they are African peoples and are part of what we're all about. So that's why I appreciate the sister understanding the photographies. And there we are dressed in white. We didn't come to be saints. We came to dress in the spirit. White is a very spiritual part of Africa. And so 129 or so people paid to fly to Africa and to be a part of a pilgrimage, the return to the source of human development, the return to the source of empowerment, self-empowerment, so that we could resist the worst enslavement in human history. Hundreds of years of enslavement by all of these African, so-called African friends, the colonizers. The Catholic Church was the first of the worst processes that happened. They decreed that the world is divided from South Pole to North Pole and is controlled by Europeans. This is a papal decree. And these Europeans not only split the world between two small, insignificant nations, Portugal and Spain. And Portugal had one side, and that included half the world, and Spain had the other side. And they had the right to take all native peoples and enslave them with the blessing of the church. So that meant all of the Native Americans and Native Caribbeans in these islands. That meant all of the African peoples. We have to understand what a monster we've had to face. This is not a game. This is not an affair with some trinkets, selling some trinkets to people. They took the foundations of the human family, the African peoples, and put them through a process of dehumanization, brainwashing at its worst, murder at its worst, torture, destruction of anything spiritual, and then gave us a plate of nothingness, whiteness. That's not enough to bring us back to who and what we are. We had to find our Africanness, and we're still looking for it. And most of you are running away from it. Or you think it's going to be in Bob Marley. He did his spiritual thing. He gave a message to the world. But Bob didn't have the deep Africans understanding of spirit and whatnot. But whatever he found that he could use his talents. And so we have a lot of musicians that use their talents, but they got to go into the spiritual well. They got to go through the process of bathing in order to purify yourself from this disease called whiteness. And so we don't play with it. We have to lay it out there. And so that's why we're on the death list of people who, their ancestors and the creator and our spirits have protected us. They have wished us away for a long time. I have an article in back of Charles. He don't have to worry to get it. But no, Charles, forget it. I was in junior high and wrote a letter about some racist thing and sent it to the newspaper. So my response was from them. We are organizing White Citizens Council in New Jersey, not in the South, in the county, just down the street from where I lived. In other words, 2 will never equal 4 is what they said on their nice little telegram to me. But yeah, 2 will never equal 4. But when you put the African equation together, the male and the female, the ancestors, the yet to be born, that equation is something they can't even understand. Because when you have an origin out of the caves of Europe, you have a deficit that is hard for you to deal with. But they've learned we can deal with our deficit. Just find some Black people, wherever they are, on whatever island and whatever continent they are, and hook your wagon up to Black folks. You may come out of the caves land poor, resource poor, people poor. But if you hook yourself up to Black folk, people of the sun, you're going to find out that you're going to be gloriously rewarded with this insanity of domination, destruction, and death. And so Marion, in her, with her photograph, says, this is the bus we had. We had to get permission from the Ghana government to say, we're not the normal tourists, we're pilgrims. And we're going into the slave forts and dungeons not to see what the Europeans left, but to relate to those ancestors lost in those dungeons, the death house that they had put together. Before you had the Jewish destruction by the Germans, Buchenwald and Dachau and all the great horror places that these so-called Superman German built, Africa had. When they go into these slave dungeons, we don't go in there and say, "Ooh, what a lovely building. This is the largest building I've ever been in. And this is a castle." It ain't no damn castle. Ain't no queens and kings lived there, no princes. The commander of the slaving operation lived there. And he had his way on everything. When he wanted to take some of our little girls and take them upstairs in his private quarters to be raped, he did that. That ain't no king or queen. That's the devil at work. So we have to understand all that. Don't get mad, get clear. Don't be scared, be prepared. Wherever I go and I lay out my message, I say, be prepared that you're African and we have found our African way. Africanize yourself and you're on the way, no matter what problems you have. African value systems are communal, cooperative, and collective, spiritual living. They're not the 3 Ds, domination, destruction, and death. They're the 3 Cs, communal, living together, cooperative, working together, and collective, sharing. Hey, so once we get this process going, and this was wonderful to go to the slave dungeons, then we had a chance to go to the memorial, Kwame Nkrumah Memorial. The brother was the founding father of modern Ghana, and he was standing on the shoulders of many great ones. And so his statue outside of Parliament was pulled down, and it was a disgrace. People who felt that he was not good enough for them as leader, or he wasn't from the right ethnic group. Most of the people in southern Ghana are Akan, either Fanti or Asante. And then you have the Ewe and the Ga, et cetera, as part of the mix. Then you have the northern people in Ghana that are mainly Muslim. But this statue that was of Nkrumah that was pulled down at the time of independence, the statue was raised up. But after the years went by, the Ghanaians used their sense of consciousness and balance to put in place a symbol of what Nkrumah was all about on his positive side, not on his negative side. And they created a memorial, which I couldn't believe it when I saw it. They have an arts market in that area where you can go and buy cloth, you can buy carvings, etc. And I went down there to buy some stools or whatever, and I had a chance to look over a fence. And I said, "What the hell is that?" And they said, "That's the new Kwame Nkrumah Memorial." And I almost wet my pants because it was the most marvelous thing. They had created a mausoleum for him. They had created horn blowers, blowing their horns in the water around this. They had glorified him in ways that would be unbelievable. And then there was a museum and some of his personal things were. And they had the fantastic thing is that we went there, and there's a statue of him stepping forward and pointing to the future. So you may take down a statue, but if the people have your spirit and your consciousness, they will glorify you in ways that we had never even thought of. The waters of life, the horn blowers. And we, Brother Small and myself and the group, had a chance to go there with Dr. Clark's widow. She was able to put a wreath at this ceremonial sacred place of Nkrumah. At one point, we went there with Minister Louis Farrakhan, and he was not able to do the things he did. So Dr. Betty Shabazz, Elhaj Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X's widow, she was able to speak on behalf of us, the Africans in America, in reference to linkage and whatnot. And then Betty even went with us at another point when we participated in these international conferences. And the seventh Pan-African Conference was in Uganda. And she went with us there, and she had the status of representing this great brother, Elhaj Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X, Omar Wale, who had been a transition for us from the old school of struggle to the new nation building, to the preparation for this enormous future. And we went up into the mountains overlooking the lakes in Kampala, the capital of Uganda. And a park was being dedicated to Elhaj Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X. And she was there to dedicate the park. And of course, she had to have high security. Malcolm and others, just as they took King away from us, our king, they took our Black Shining Prince away from us. People go crazy in reference to Black folk finding their way. And so they had to have security. I couldn't be here if it wasn't for the security. Sons of Africa, 40 to 50 of them, were known to be a part of our operation to protect Dr. Jeffries and his associates, Professor Small and others, and protect his wife and protect other members. So we know that we have to have something serious in place that means something for us. Betty loved children. She had 5 daughters, and 3 of them were there when Malcolm was removed from us. And she was on the floor with 2 live spirits in her womb, twins. And so this is what she had to go through. Find a way to stand up and be strong, and she did. So when she got up into those mountains and asked to dedicate the park to her vanquished hero husband, she saw the kids. Security tried to keep her away from the kids. She wasn't going to be kept away from no young kids. She went to those youngsters hugging and kissing, etc. And then she dedicated the park to Malcolm X. We've had these experiences, brothers and sisters, that y'all can't even dream of, but they happen. We need to make sure that we have footage of this. So it's not just party, shake your booty. We can do all of that. Africans go into dance when they go into funerals, they dance. When they go to war, they dance. When they're celebrating a great event, they dance. So Africans are known to dance. But the question is, you need to learn to have counsel with significant others so you can prepare a way to handle warfare, to handle nation building, to handle ethnic group problems, or one group fighting another. So Brother Spoil and I and these others who go regularly to Africa, we've had a chance to be in the middle of all of this. And so we can say without flinching that African culture is alive. It is bathing in that culture will renew you. And you just don't have to go to the pathways that seems to be only available for you, the Judeo-Christian Islamic pathways. There's Africans who laid down the pathways for those folks who institutionalized the Judeo-Christian Islamic way. We're not beating down anybody's religious tradition. All of us have to have a spiritual component. But we're saying Africans have been firstest with the mostest. And we need our due. We need to talk about reparations. But we don't need to worry about some folks giving us reparations. They can never give us back what they've stolen. Just as our brothers and sisters in the hinterlands of America, the Native Americans, they can't be rewarded. There's no reparations for them. You killing millions of Native American people. You're coming in their land, saying that God ordained it for you. And then you're giving them blankets, saying that these are gifts from us, smallpox blankets to create a monster death among your people. And then we have the brazen plans to take down your life. Your life is around the buffalo, a special animal that can service you in many ways with all of that a buffalo has. And so the plan was for these calculative white folks coming out of the cave with that cave mentality is to take down the buffalo. And if you take down the buffalo, you take survival subsistence away from these Native Americans. So 1 million buffalo were killed. So we have not only the death of the humans, but the calculative death to take away your food supply, to take away the horns that can be used for ceremonies, to take away the skins that can be used to help build your homes. So we got to understand the monster that we got to deal with. And you can deal with them. We've dealt with them all these years, but you better be wrapped up in Africanness in order to make sure that your dealing come out positive. And so again, Sister Marion, and here's Nkrumah, and then here's Dr. J at those waters. And this is Dr. John Henry Clark's widow holding flowers to put at the tomb of Nkrumah. And myself and Brother Small and others, we were all there. We were there to celebrate this great brother who came to America, bonded with Black folks in America, went to Lincoln University, got a consciousness about Pan-Africanism, and then went back home to put it in place. So we have to honor him. But as you honor him in the most sacred way, which you see us doing here, you got to be on guard. You have to have God in guard. You have to have God too, whatever focus you think your God is. But you have to be on guard while we are celebrating this great brother's accomplishments and his renewal by people who care for him. There were people there looking at us, not as brothers and sisters from America, but looking at people who could be taken. Here we are showing the most respect for the great leader. And there they are calculating, where are their cameras? Where are their pocketbooks? Where are the things that and actually went through, looked at what we had and figured out how they could steal. We got ripped off, stolen, stripped nude of our precious things at the memorial ceremony. But did that make us mad? No, that wised us up that some people, no matter who they look like, they may look like your brother, because we're so proud to say, oh, well, this looks like Cousin James. Oh, this one looks like Scott or something. But there were people ready to rip us off at a sacred memorial ceremony, a dedication to African greatness. So we have to understand the devil works in mysterious ways, and we better keep our eye on him. He comes in all kinds of forms. And so we have to deal with that. But you stay with that African way, and I'll tell you, you'll be all right. And this is, again, what we're saying. We knew that the youngsters who ripped us off, who went and checked out what type of cameras we had, they went and put an evaluation on where they should go to rip us off. But we knew that the people who really meant something, they were in the spiritual realm with us. This is the king of Ashanti, Atufo Opokowari II, one of the great kings of this great traditional nation, kingdom, reaching out for us. In the tradition, you don't touch the king. You can bow to him and acknowledge him. He removed all of that. He said, y'all are part of my spiritual family. And so he would have me shaking his hand, but then in the waiting room was our group. And our group included about 50 of us. Our group included Brother Small's clan, his son, his daughters, his nieces, etc. And they had a chance. We have a great picture of this Agnat and Malcolm X Small, his youngest, coming in to shake the king's hand. We have to understand how they have offered us Africanness in ways that you have to begin to appreciate. Africanize your lives, and you're on the path. And so we can continue to do this serious work, but we're going to stop it here. Oh no, James, we want them to know that these folks are serious. These folks in Africa that work the spirit are serious and that maintain the tradition. This is Professor Smalls and myself when we took a group we were trying to, follow the tradition with the pilgrims. So they actually put in place something that we had not been expected. They actually joined us in the pilgrimage concept. So when we got to the great so-called Castle Elmina, the people were there and they were dressed in white. Well, we didn't quite have our pilgrimage. No, they were dressed in regular cloth. We were dressed in white because we had called it a pilgrimage. But eventually, these brothers and sisters, they slaughtered an animal as part of the ritual and spilled the blood on the dungeon. And then they took us into the castle. And I had heard a rumor that Professor Small was going to possibly be installed. So when we walked over the moat and got into the courtyard, these brothers came running at us. And so my faulty judgment took over. And so they came running at me to throw me up in the air to take me through the installment process. And I'm yelling and screaming, no, it's not me, it's him. I'm pointing to Brother Small. And I said, he's the wrong person. And they wasn't paying me no mind. I was up in the air. They had the powder on me. And I was going to be installed. And they went through the process, carried me around, thousands of people there. This is going to be part of our new leader, etc. And then when they took us around and greeting all these people, they wanted to know, when they sat me on the stool and gave me a sword, what I was going to do because the installment process is being attached to the stool physically 3 times, and then the sword is a sword of power that you swear on. Now, while I was sitting on the stool with the white powder on me and holding this sword, Brother Smalls was on one side of me, he was on the left side, my wife was on the right side. Some old man looking like a great thinker of the ancient European Imhoteps or somebody. This old man came dancing down to us, next to us, knowing that we were a little perplexed. And so to straighten out this perplexed state that we're in, he told Professor Small and I, in our tradition, the spiritual leader is kept behind and the political leader is raised up. So they had divided James and I up into spiritual and political and pulled us back together as one formulation of African consciousness. You don't have to understand our people are deep, y'all. You don't get a surface of it by going there to dance and have a good time. We have a good time. We had such a good time. We put our little pennies together and bought $1 million hotel. But you have to have a plan. You have to work with them. Their leadership helped us into purchasing that hotel. Brother Small knows how to link up with everybody. He linked up with one of the leading men in Cape Coast. He was a leader in every division they had, in the Masonic divisions, in their special divisions. He was a businessman, and he had taken his beautiful home on the side of the mountain and expanded it into a guest house, and then expanded it into a hotel. And then he had the grace to help us purchase the hotel. And he led us through the process. If he had not done it, we couldn't have maintained the hotel. And we did it with a handshake after we met and joined ourselves as African families. We did it with a handshake. And then I still had some questions, and I asked him when we had this special dinner and a meeting to get the hotel together. I said, we appreciate what you're doing, Brother Nana, and we understand and appreciate you and your work. But I just have two questions when he laid out the proposition of the purchase. I said, and Brother Smalls was there, he remembers. I said, in your private meetings with your people, when they're talking about us like a dog, will you defend us? He said, yes. And then I made another proposition, and he didn't hesitate. And he said, yes. And the handshake was made, and that was the deal. He stayed with us for years, helping us through the craziness of people who don't have nothing, who want to get something, who stole from us. We hired people we thought was looking like us and acting like us and feeling like us. And we even took the young man and sent him in September when we had our meetings. We sent him out to California to go to school. He was getting his degree while he was helping us and trying to run our hotel. But Brother Small, his eyes open, he knows how to look for things. And he said, there's something wrong. The books are not counting up right. Something's going on. So we got a chance to go back to the brother and say that it looks like we're being ripped off. And he said, you know, I had my suspicions. I saw someone hanging around this young man who helped me cook my books. So he said, your suspicions are correct. And Brother Small and I had to meet with the brother and tell him, brother, what are you doing to us? And he wouldn't admit it. Then when we told him, we know what you did. And then he was on his knees. Please, I beg you, I beg you. I said, don't beg us for nothing. We came here to be part of your family, and you ripped us off, etc. And we had to let the guy go. He had the best thing going. We were taking care of him, getting a degree in America, working for us in this damn hotel. But it was a blessed hotel for us where it was situated. And we had the support of the people to make it so. So these are things that y'all ain't gonna get in no history book, and you ain't gonna get in no lectures. But that's the real deal. And that's why we are so glad that our young brothers, Brother Reggie and them, pulled together what we were all about. And there it is, the African Scholar Warriors. And you have that symbol of the Nile Valley Resurrection. And then you have in the center our elders, Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben. Dr. Clark gave us West Africa, and Dr. Ben gave us the Nile Valley. And then the white-haired man is Professor Scobie. He was at the 5th Pan-African Conference in 1945, along with the great Africans and Nkrumah and all of them, and Padmore and Du Bois and whatnot, and Marcus Garvey's wife. And Scobie brought that experience from the little island in the Caribbean, and he came and stood with us. He was an RAF pilot, etc. He was a journalist. And so we brought him on the staff, and the people said he doesn't have his degree. I say, at the time that y'all got your degrees, y'all wasn't letting us get no damn degrees. But his works are equivalent to your masters and whatnot. So we were able to bring Professor Scobie and the other scholars in at the right position because we knew how to play the game. I've been trained to play the game, their game, and I beat them at their game. And so wherever I go, I know how to take care of business, their style, and then come out on top. And there's Brother Small, and that's the time he had some locks. And Brother Small has such a persona. People just look at him and say, you got to be somebody. And then at one point, I remember we were in New Orleans and Brother Smalls had his hair locked up, had a beautiful African attire. And the word went through the crowd that Jesus is here. I mean, it was something people were worried about. Brother Small, and they're trying to get near him to brush up on the locks and get a touch and whatnot. Hey, Brother Smalls was in control of the thing. He's been in many, many spiritual associations and brotherhoods and family hoods. He knows how to handle that even. So, James, if it wasn't for you, a lot of the stuff that we did couldn't take place. You give me the kudos, but you have to have the partners. You have to have the plans. You have to have, you had a chance to be with Malcolm for so many years through his family. And so you knew what struggle was all about. Because Brother Smalls will not hesitate to say, remove this person. He's not right, and we got to deal with him. And so I have to give thanks to James and my physical brother, my younger brother, Marlon, for being there ready to give their life for me and the others, the Dr. John Henry Clarks and whatnot. And of course, there's Dr. Clark, a Mr. 5x5, small in physical stature, but a giant who took us all around the world. He took us to Los Angeles to fight the white folks who controlled African history. And he said, we're here to do battle. We're here to participate. And they looked at us like we were crazy. Here comes this old man, Mr. 5x5, and behind him are tiger cubs, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Ronald Walters, Dr. Shelby Lewis, Dr. James Turner. Dr. Clark didn't go anywhere without us. We've had to bear witness and ready to give our life for him. And so we had to take on the association that controlled Africa, supported by the CIA and everything else. So they weren't going to let us be a part of it. So we said, okay, if you don't, we will meet you in Montreal at your next convention. And the next convention, we were prepared. When they did not allow us to become part of African studies, we said, the hell with you. We tore up their meeting, and then we set up our own studies, African Heritage Studies Association. So sometimes you got to be rough with these roughnecks. That's what they understand. But Dr. Clark said, get back on course. We're going down to Howard. We're going to set up this program. And then we're going to go overseas. And he took us in 1972 to England to meet with white people. Now here we are, nationalists, Pan-Africanists, people who are fighting white supremacy, and we're going to go meet white people? So, but he's our leader. So he takes us to meet Basil Davidson at his home, sitting at the feet of the master, the same thing he did with us at Dr. Clark's own home. You'd have adults sitting in chairs, and then you'd have us sitting on stools or pillars on the floor, truly sitting at the feet of the masters. And so when we went to Basil Davidson's home, that's what we did too. The adults had the chairs and whatnot. We were sitting at the feet. James Turner, Ron Walters, myself, and all Shelby Lewis and Herschel Schauner and whatnot. And then it was at that time that, the question was whether Africa has a history or whether it is significant. But Basil Davidson had written a book, Black Mother, about the origin of humankind coming out of the African experience. And so we were able to sit with him, and he was trying to let us know that it's not a skin game, it's a mind game. And if you can deal with the people who understand the mind development, you connect with them. And so that was fantastic, because being Black nationalist, you wouldn't say all white folks is this and that. No, he was trying to say, be calculative, study them. And so we fortunately in 72, we were able to establish our own organization. And I was able to say, as Brother Smalls was trying to explain, that we decided to set up, we were at the Manding Conference. And of course, Basil Davidson had done serious work. The Manding are the people in Senegal and Mali and whatnot. And but we went further past. My thing was, now here we are at a white-dominated conference. We need to, the next conference on Africa needs to be in Africa. So I put that out there, and people thought it made some sense, and we followed it up. And as Brother Smalls was trying to say, we had Professor Akinjobin, who was at the Manding Conference, but he also agreed that the next conference on Africa should be on African soil. And so to make it happen, we agreed that 76, 3 years, we'd start in 73, and we planned for 3 years, and we would do it. But that meant that us Black folk from America needed the help of our indigenous Africans from the continent. And so we brought Akinjobin over as a visiting professor for 1 year. But when we saw what we had to do, he stayed for 2 years. I think eventually he stayed for 3 years. Because I knew how to maneuver the system, I was able to give him not only a place to help plan for this conference, but to complete his work. And then my wife and I moved out of we had a colonial house that had enough, bedrooms and stuff. So we had done this before. We left our bedroom suite on the top of the house, and we moved into a master bedroom on the next floor, and we gave the master suite to Akinjobin. So when he came to America for the visiting professorship, he had no money spent on renting. That money went into his pocket, and he brought his 2 youngest child with him, and they added family joy to our house. He brought his wife, who ran the cafeteria at this new university in Ife, but she took time off to join him. I mean, you have no idea, linking family-wise, what that means. In fact, my wife was so inspired by their youngest son, Banga, who, when he got to our house in the fall, and the leaves were falling, but also snow was falling. And when he got to the airport, he looked out, he said, "What is all of this whiteness?" And his 7-year-old daughter, sister, she told him, "That's snow." Now, she ain't know nothing about no snow, but she knew enough that the white stuff is snow. He ain't known nothing at all. When he got to our house, before he even got settled, he ran out the house to run in snow in bare feet. But his spirit was such that Rosalind drew a painting of him, a spirit moving through our world, Banga. And so Akinjobin stayed with us for this conference. The Yoruba people, the Oni of Ife, helped to finance the building of a new university in Yoruba land. And that's how we had this enormous conference, and we had this enormous relationship. So at one point, you had Akinjobin upstairs with his family. Downstairs, you had Kamaralai, the greatest writer from Guinea, who, again, we were all of us are Capricorns. And somehow there was a special relationship. Kamaralai was very close to Sekou. In fact, he had to leave Sekou because Sekou is getting a little rough in Guinea. And Kamaralai took his family, 9 kids, and went to Senegal. And he was able to finish out his life in Senegal. But he grew up in the same household as Sekou Touré. They were African family connected. But when it got too difficult, Kamaralai didn't go into warfare and come up with some process to kill or harm him. He just went over the border into Senegal, found a place to live, and he helped me with the Alex Haley project, Kamaralai. So he lived in the apartment in the basement. Akinjobi and others lived upstairs. And at one point when Akinjobi went back, we had a brother from Brazil with his wife, Paula, come in. And she stayed, and I stayed up. In fact, their daughter was produced while they spent a year with us. And so there's reciprocity. Here we are with this beautiful brother artist and his wife, Paula, and they invited us to come down to a conference of the Black artists, my wife's group, and they had this fantastic session of Black artists with the Brazilian artists, and it went very well, and it was in Bahia. However, white folks being white folks, they had a big banquet, and the banquet was supposed to be part of this process, awards banquet and the rest. And unfortunately, the major speaker was supposed to be myself. And so when I got up to speak, I looked around to see the Brazilians, and there were no Brazilians there. So I said, how can we be in the heart of the most African part of Brazil and no Brazilians are there? The white folks told the Black African Brazilians that you're not welcome. So I refused to speak. I said, until they are brought here and a part of this, I will not speak with these 500 white folks. You got to straighten out this mistake. And they did. And some of the Africans were smart enough. They didn't come all dressed up. They came in with their work clothes on. And one of the guys was Siciliano. And to make a to-do out of things, I'm quick on putting something together. So my excuse was to acknowledge him and the other Brazilian artists and to show appreciation to his wife, because she had a child conceived in our home. And so we had a doll that my wife developed, taken from the Akan model, the Aquaba doll, and she expanded it, and we gave that doll in ceremony to Paula. So the white folks can see it's not about materialism, it's about spiritualism. And we got the spirit. That's why you don't mess around in Brazil when you see a circle of smoke on the Copacabana beach. You know that they had a Yoruba ceremony, Yemaya and whatnot. And so you walk away from that. You show the utmost. So when I put in the ceremonies, they showed me respect, but some of them didn't know how to do it, right? So Ola Tunji got on his drums. You talk about the sacred. Brazilians are, no matter how white they are, they're going to obey the drums. When Ola Tunji got on those drums, they wasn't the drums of passion. They were the drums of spirituality. And they shut up. They paid attention. And they let me give my presentation. Now, these are things most of my family doesn't even know about. But spirit moves in mysterious ways, and we need to get attached to that spirit so that we can have these victories. So I would leave you at Brazil there, but I'm not, Charles. Let's reach over and get one of those. No, Marion has it in here. You don't have to.
I actually sent it to. Oh, wow.
This is Dr. J dressed as an African chief. And then on the other side is Nana Sarpan, who adopted us as part of his family, and others. But what I wanted to show you, and Charles said it's in here. Here it is. Oh, goodness gracious. We may not be able to see it on the camera, but James, this is another one of those things. Goodness. We would go to Brazil at the time of the celebration of Zumbi. One of our people, we took him into City College and we gave him a place. This is brother, and he set up the Zumbi Foundation with us. And so every November you have a Black Brazilian Day that they go up into the mountains and celebrate the African tradition of that resisted the European and built communities in the mountains. And so these are the Quilambos. And so we went up into the mountain on a regular basis. Every other year we would go to Brazil and we go up into the mountains. But somehow when I went this year, you fly up to Maceió and you take the train from Maceió to the mountains, and then you take a bus up the mountain. And so we did this, but I didn't feel comfortable in that bus. The bus seemed to be too rickety for me. So halfway up the mountain, I said, I got to get off. This bus ain't going to make it. So I did get off. And for the next 3 hours, I walked up the mountain with half the people from the bus. And when we arrived at the ceremony, the Zumbi ceremony was already done. When these women, these priestess, and there they are in white, when they saw me in African dress coming up that mountain on my mission to link up with them spiritually, they told the Babalawo, the spirit of Zumbi has arrived. We have to do the ceremony over. We have to do it again. And that usually does not happen, but they did do the ceremony over after they consulted with each other. And then after the ceremony, they gave me the Ogun beads, the god of struggle and war. And they didn't know that within a year I'd have a struggle with the world, these white folks trying to destroy us from getting into our institution. But those Ogun beads I wore at the trial. I had the symbol of Nana Denny Zulu's son in one pocket. I had something else in another. I had as much African spirituality as I could muster sitting in the federal court. I wasn't going to submit to Europeanness. And the judge saw me. When it was my time to be questioned by the attorney generals of New York and the this and the that, I took a break to go a bathroom break. And when I went into the bathroom, I made sure that these rings that Nana Afo-Asa gave me, these 5 or 6 rings, I have them still today. My wedding ring is gone, but there are the rings that bonded me spiritually to the Asante people. I went into the bathroom, not to take a wee-wee, but to take out my war machinery. And he saw me holding on to things when I came back. And that's why he said, Jeffries has some repugnant things about him. There wasn't no repugnant things. He knew what I was doing. The Irish do that. The Italians do that. They got their way of touching their little spirituality and stuff like that. I was not going to go in there by myself. I was bringing in whatever Africa I could bring that could neutralize them. And then when we finished, we got the victory. As soon as the judge had opened up the trial, we had the victory because he had said that come back we got there at 10. He said, come back at 1 after the lunch break. We went across the street, not to go to some cafe to get a sip of whatever mint julep. We went to the African burial ground. And on the African burial ground, we were looking for, again, that spirit that we're talking about. Africans coming up out of the ground, hundreds of graves. And that stopped the building of these big office buildings there. And so we went over to the African burial ground and poured libation and asked for the blessings of our ancestors. And then when we went back in the court and sat down, the judge had said, he gave us the victory the first day. He said all of the Albany speech is protected by the First Amendment. That was it. But we went through a month-long trial because they were trying to do everything they can to block it. But they couldn't because we was operating with spirit. We wasn't just having the best lawyer possible, Joseph Fleming. We made sure that we got African spirit on our side so we could sit there with dignity. Even Dick Gregory, who was in Chicago, and we were good friends. Dick Gregory called me. He said, you got Chicago upset. I said, what are you talking about, Dick? There's people in the barbershops are not talking about their usual mess. They're talking about what is he wearing today? What is he doing this and that? Affecting ordinary folks in the barbershops in Chicago. Spirit is something you all need to tap into. Otherwise, you are not going to have the glorious march of success that you should have. So, brothers and sisters, that's Dr. J trying to lay it out for you. And you can't do it by yourself. So, Brother Small, I have to give him his kudos. And then if he was so close to Malcolm's family that I get my calls from Rodnell and let me know what's happening up in Boston. And then it's not just a Jeffries spiritual situation. Here's a sister called Shashi McIntyre. She produced a book, and she proudly said that she's of a triple heritage. There's white folks in the blood. There's Native Americans in the blood. And there's Africans in the blood. And Shashi was a strong sister. She didn't take no prisoners. And when she had been in the military, so when she greeted you, she pounded you in the chest. I had to be prepared to stand up knowing that's just what she's going to do, pound you in the chest. But she produced this book, Criminalizing a Race. This book now is worth $1,000. She did her analysis and she did her understanding of what was happening and produced this book by herself. And there's, you can't really see her, but there's a little picture of her right there, Shashi McIntyre. But she organized the women's into a women group. Barbara Sizemore, great educator, Barbara Wheeler, and all of these sisters, they formed a women's group to complement us, not to replace us, not to move us to the side, but to give us that female component. And then so thankful for Shashi, she was able to inspire later, years later, this book, The New Jim Crow. And this particular sister is, right now, her husband passed, let's say her father-in-law passed, and she's actually left Ohio, I think, and she's part-time at the Union Theological Seminary. But she produced a book on the prison system. And so here's Shashi's talking about it in her generation, and here's Michelle talking about it in hers. And she's a mother with 4 or 5 kids. She's a professional lawyer. And so she has many things in that she's responsible for, but that hasn't stopped the sister. That has not stopped the sister. Her father-in-law was in our wedding, Donald Smith. He was working with the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation. Her, and also in our wedding was Richard Hope. This was the grandson of John Hope, one of the leading presidents of Morehouse, etc. So these family affairs, when we had our wedding, we had people who were involved in Africa, and we were encouraging each other to keep involved. One of the persons in my wedding was John Kennard, and he was such a great brother that Reverend Robinson took the 2 of us, and this is the person who devised the Crossroads Africa program. He took the 2 of us, young black men. John is big and black. I mean, I'm a midget to John. John was a football player at his South Carolina school, and but we got involved with Robinson and Africa. And Charles, get the Reverend Robinson's. Oh, you're a smart ass, smart ass. He done jumped the gun. He done got it here already. Charles, no, don't be thinking faster than I am. Oh my goodness, He done got, here is Reverend James H. Robinson, who set up the Operation Crossroads Africa program. And there he is being honored by the Africans. And there is a ceremony that they're carrying out. And he became like, we became his children, my wife and I. He knew Rosin before I knew her. And there he is in a ceremony. And so you can see that he went to school with Kwame Nkrumah, and Kwame Nkrumah asked him to do something for Africa. Do something, have your people come and work with us in economic development and whatnot. And so that actually happened. Thousands of young people have been able to go to Africa on projects. I went in Ivory Coast, 61, helping to build a school. I went to Senegal in 62, and they had a chantier école program, which they copied from the Israelis to teach people skills and whatnot and agriculture. And then the next year I went to Guinea, and I was in the mountains of Guinea with Sekou Touré's people building a youth center. So, and then the following year, 64, is when I got married at the time that Malcolm was murdered. Roz and I were planning to go to spend a couple of years in Africa to do study and research. So there's no magic. There's just an understanding. I don't stand alone. Rosin doesn't stand alone. All of us got this African thing and used it. I'm talking about Dr. Asa Hilliard, brother from the South, from Atlanta. And he built around him these folks that worked together. Maria Boni went down there, and she got a part of his life. Larry Obadeli Williams went out there. Asa changed the thinking of Morehouse College, which wanted to be a status school, and they were, but they wanted you to be status in the white formulation, and that we couldn't do. We were processed out of that. And so, but I wanted the youngsters to go to Southern schools. So I think I took 22 of them down south to Atlanta for some conference or what activity. And of those 22 youngsters, 18 of them, 17 of them went to African American schools. My nephews went to Morehouse, Hassan. And my best buddy, Ken Travitt, childhood buddy, his son went to Morehouse. The small kids went to the Virginia schools, etc. Some of them went north, and that was the Scobies kids. But we were encouraging them to get a bit of the struggle and taste of the South. And all of them have done well. They're not a single failure. Wherever they went, they moved to the top of the class and achieved and had a significant processing, got their families together. Brother Small is one. He's a healer. I mean, he has this ability to go into people's confusion and then come out, have them come out strengthened and whatnot. So he's been able to do that for others who are not his family, and he's been able to do that for his family. So proud to see his youngest son, and his oldest son is an educator. He was thinking strong like older sons do, and it's like me. You can be hard-headed. Older sons can be hard-headed, but he got the message, and he's become a model educator. The school that he has in the middle school in Brooklyn is unbelievable. I mean, he's got whole floors that have historical significance. You go down one floor, and that's Dr. Clark Way. And you go down another floor, and that's Dr. Ben Way. He got a computer center. He got a music center. I mean, it's just the most marvelous thing that you can imagine, that these youngsters came out of this experience and have been able to contribute and extend it. So that's the beauty of all of this. And then I can't leave you without hooking up internationally. And there he is, a brother from the Caribbean, born on the same day as I am, but 20 years apart. A brother who adopted me as one of his own. And he said that when we went to see Thurgood Marshall a play, and when we finished it, we were having a little sip of something. For me, it's usually, I don't eat. I'm not alcohol, so it was probably juice. And he said to me, he said, "Len Jeffries." I said, "Yes, brother." He said, "You know we're born the same day." I said, "No, we're not." He said, "Yes, I'm January 19th. And you're January 19th, 20 years apart." And so we became like uncle and nephew, father and son. He had one son out of his 5 children, but he, in essence, said that you and I are going to work together, and he really was helpful. This is him. This is Dudley Thompson. This brother was born in Panama, but of Jamaican parents. 6 years old, he went back to Jamaica, went up into the mountains, Westmoreland. His father was an educator. And then he was able to rise in the educational structure of Jamaica. And eventually he went to MICO, which is not the high prestige school. High prestige is in the mountains, and that's the University of the West Indies at Mona. But he was strong enough to go to MICO and get a good education. And then he got a Rhodes Scholarship, and he went and studied in Africa. He was an RAF pilot like Scobie. Both him and Scobie were in England at the same time, knocking German planes out of the sky. Both of them became advocates of fighting for Black people. And both of them became part of my life. Scobie was right there as a rock to be with me. Every day we did our work, and then I would take him home, and then I would take Reggie or somebody up into the Bronx to get them home. Family is the key, and that's what we operate on. And this is Jomo Kenyatta, the spirit of the Mau Mau movement, and Dudley Thompson, who his buddy, they were together at the Manchester Conference in 1945. And so was Nkrumah, and so was a whole host of others, and Padmore, and they developed a brotherhood of struggle that laid the foundation for the African independence movement. And so we don't take these things individually and analyze them. We see them collectively as part of a process that will give us, if you can't find an analysis that allows you to have a systems understanding, then you will be subject to systems exploitation. We need systems building. And that's why our brother Taki and his partners have come up with HAPI, H-A-P-I, for referencing the struggles in the Nile Valley of the Africans' ability after the flood to rebuild and leave this legacy. But Dudley Thompson single-handedly was asked by Jomo Kenyatta and the Mau Mau to prepare an international group of jurors to protect the Mau Mau and their holy land. Now, this great brother is the way the Europeans treated our people. They created cells in the ground, concrete cells in the ground, and then they put the African prisoners in the cells. And you had a little space of 5 or 6 inches above the cell, and that's the air that you had to breathe. Now, this Jomo Kenyatta was able to, out of his cell, from his cell, he was able to get a note to a white fellow who he knew. And that white fellow took that note from Kenya to Tanzania, 800 miles, and give it to Dudley Thompson. And he said, the lawyer, and the note was, we're in this concentration camp and we need your help. And Dudley Thompson took his old car and drove the 800 miles to this concentration camp in the ground. And they were able to communicate. And Dudley went ahead and got a team of lawyers to protect the Mau Mau. So I'm saying these stories, and his family now is a part of my family. They call me Uncle Lenny. And it's real. He's saying that we were born on the same day, so we got that type of connection. And the same spirit, this Capricorn leadership spirit, etc. But not only was he knocking German planes out of the sky, and he's a little guy, but he got the team of international lawyers to save the Mau Mau. So that's why I'm saying that this history is real, and we need to make it real. Or you can just submit to the insanity of it. The subtitle of this book, and this was by a Pan-Africanist, a scholar, Tony Martin, who's written about Marcus Garvey, etc. And in this, from Kingston to Kenya, The Making of a Pan-African Lawyer, introduction by Rex Nettlefoot. He was the brother who was the head of all of the British, all of the English schools in the Caribbean. In other words, he's a great educator, and he also put down a bill of particulars demanding reparations to the British throne. I think we lost him a few years ago, but Dudley Thompson was more than the making of a Pan-African, as he was an associate of Kwame Nkrumah and Padmore and all the rest of them. So when I study these people, I can make a personal connection because of this brother, Dudley Thompson. And so they used to have a saying in the U.S., make it real, Malcolm and whatnot. But we need to appreciate brothers, not only these great fighters, but the generations that came after them, like Tony Martin. Tony Martin, when I was attacked by the European Jewish community, Tony Martin joined in to be on the front line with me and produced a book on who was involved in slavery, etc. And there was no Europeans that ran away from being involved in slavery. That was the thing to give them a foundation to continue their great work. But he became the key player for Manley when he was doing, when Manley was running the Jamaican government. And when Manley had a big chore, like working with the Kenyans in Africa or the Nigerians, he put this brother in charge. When the African nations wanted to have a conference on reparations, they put him in charge. That was at the same time I had my trial. And so what he did was, my lawyer said, you cannot go because our case may come up. And so I didn't go. But what he did was, he took my Albany speech, the speech when I raised questions about African peoples and their history, and he put the Albany speech, which is in the proceedings. And we have and the theme of the speech was, we have a sacred mission to take care of our business and not depend upon others to do it. And so that was a part of the reparations conference. And he took Professor Scobie's work on struggles in the Caribbean, because Scobie couldn't go to the conference in Nigeria too, because he was going to be one of my major persons testifying. So what I'm saying, brothers and sisters, the struggle continues. It ain't easy, but right now we're going through the process where we had these struggles, these wars, where we put these institutions in place, these nations, the many states that need to be collapsed into regional states. And then we should be able to put together a meaningful 21st century, because we're up against the white folks, communist style and capitalist style. We're up against the Asians, Chinese style, Korean style, Japanese style. We're up against the Arabs, who are in the main people of color, black people, but they have a nationalism about their domination and superiority. And so we have to put all that in check in order for the African to continue to rise. And so I give thanks that at 95, I'm still alive and I ain't about no jive. And see, y'all didn't know that I was a little poet. I had to get my little rap together. But when I went to Harvard, I had to have a rap. I couldn't just come out on the stage and just ask the students to listen to a presentation. My brother was there. We had to take the stools. We had the African stool. And then I had a bag of books. Wherever I go, I carry books. Those are my weapons of mass destruction of white supremacy. And so my brother was so familiar with my lectures, he was sitting next to me, pulling out the books as I spoke. You have never seen any synchronized processes of two brothers speaking to the world. Harvard is the biggest thing you're going to get in American education. And we went up there to give them the biggest possible blow to white supremacy. So get a chance to get some of these speeches. The Jeffries at Albany is an important one. The Jeffries at Harvard is an important one. Jeffries in Brazil is an important one. And then you can make copies of it and give it out or sell it to your family and friends. So Brother Small is still there. I thought he went to get an aperitif and whatnot. No, he's still there. Hey,
we are still there.
And he don't like me to do the Wakanda because he beats me up too. You know, he's the only person who can beat me up. He said, "No, that Wakanda, that was the movies and whatnot." But I have pictures of me doing this way before Wakanda. When I went to different places, I had this. This is the crossing of the chest by the pharaohs. When they go on to the great beyond, they have their. So I wasn't taking it from the movies, even though I enjoyed that movie, simply because I have never been to a movie, and might never get to a movie that had 4 generations of people going to see the movie. They had the babies in the arms, they had the little children, they had the parents, and they had the grandparents. That has never happened. And so we need to take control of these images and put our movies together. The struggle that we have waged, and you're in a position to do it because you're such a lovely young lady with a lot of talent, and get together with some brothers that got a little bit of money and put some of that history together. The real story of what Kwame Nkrumah had to do, the real story of Maurice Bishop, the real story of Sankara. But these are all people we related to. James, no, we brought the kings in. We brought one king in, and then we said, wait a minute, we can make this an institution. So the Ashanti king comes in, and that was a great moment. It was history in Kumasi that they had a Grand Dubar in America. And then, of course, who was behind it? Smalls and Jeffries. And it was fantastic to bring it. And then James said, well, we have to continue. We need to do this every year. So you had the Fanti King come in, Nana Mbra, and then you had the what was it, the Eve, James? Well, we tried to get it all.
Yeah, the Eve.
Yeah. And so, and then we started planting bushes and trees, sacred bushes and trees on the campus. I mean, we were able to do, it's a fantastic story. So this little tidbit for me is just the tip of the iceberg. You're going to have to hook us up and do some serious work. Brother Small and working with the Malcolm family and whatnot. And it's just an extraordinary story. And then his coming from South Carolina. My folks come from Virginia, Georgia, and he's down there in South Carolina. And I can just see him now running through the marshes, trying to hide from the white boys coming after him. I mean, he told that story so good. but we were running just to get to safe land so we could begin our offensive. In other words, and I was a ball player, so I knew how to run. And I was a saxophone player. My mother had me doing all these things. I thought I was going to be John Coltrane. And then I played alto, tenor, and a little silver thing, you know. So at my graduation, I was the president of the class of all these white kids. I had to give them a speech to inspire them. I played a sax solo, and it was Chicago, etc. And that's when I made my crossing into childhood and manhood. My mother sent me down to Mulberry Street, 33 Elm Street, off of Mulberry. Here I am, a 12-year-old kid, president of all these little white kids in grammar school. And she says, go to see Miss Grace Baxter Fenderson. So I knock on the door. And this nice, gentle lady opens up. And she says, how are you? What can I do for you? And so I told her, I said, I'm here to join the struggle. She said, you are? I said, well, come on in. Let's talk. And she sat down with me, and I told her what I was doing now. I was getting prepared for my graduation, and I had to get my speech together. She said, do you have it together? I said, yes. She said, could I hear it? I said, of course. So I gave her my speech. She said, look, we're going to do several things with you. He said, in a couple of weeks, in February, this is January now. She said, in February, we have our biggest fundraiser, the Lincoln Douglas dinner, Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. And you're going to speak there. And the rest is history. I spoke there and shook people up. They couldn't, this little guy. And that's the way it's been. People giving you a chance to move and groove and still be yourself. One of our great things, they just had Roberto Clemente's story on TV. And it was fantastic about this brother coming from the Black community in Puerto Rico. James, is where Dr. Ben grew up in North Carolina. And that's where you have the cane and it's like, it's not up in the mountains. You're doing serious work. But this brother's story is so fantastic. And he got into sports. And he became one of the leading baseball players. And some of the baseball players that he connected with were the Black American baseball players. Now, they were just busting into baseball. And he had a hard time understanding the racial situation, but he knew that the people he had to work with were the Black players. And so they were successful. And he became one of the best ball players in the game. And then since he was poor, he related to the people at home. And he built schools and he built a whole lot of things. And then there was a hurricane or something happened in Honduras. And people were suffering from the either hurricane or volcano. And he put aside his baseball preoccupation, and he hired planes to take supplies to Honduras. And he was so serious that they said that you got to come back. He said, some of the people are stealing. Only you can stop them. In other words, you're taking supplies into, and they're stealing it and selling it. And the same thing happened in Haiti and all. And so he purposely went on one of the planes to try to stop the stealing and to deliver. And the plane didn't make it out the airport. It failed and it fell into the ocean. And the brother died doing serious work for his community. But he's a legend. They loved him. They said he's the best player they ever had. Nobody ever knew how to catch a ball and turn around and throw it. And he just was a special spirit. And that's the type of thing we need to capture and put it on film. You know, I appreciate the way you handle all your programs. So you may have to have a special meeting with Brother Small and myself so that we can map out something serious. And so don't get intimidated by us. We're ordinary brothers who have an extraordinary plan and program before us, but we just ordinary, nothing special. We can't create no magic. We go in the woods and find no fortune. But we have this agreement to be brothers and family, and that makes a hell of a big difference. Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben's family, Dr. Asa Hilliard and his cousin Jacob Carruthers' family, Dr. Turner at Cornell from New York, but he went up to Cornell and set up the Africana Studies program. He's still there. He's an old man now, but him and his wife Janice, they got it together, other words. So you got to have a partner to help you if possible. You got to have a family. You got to have ancestral understanding. You have to have African spirituality and a sense of vision, purpose, and direction. So we are in, and this is my last statement, we are in the period of African Renaissance. How do I know? Do you have it here, Charles?
It should be on the table.
Okay. Charles ain't paying me no mind. He's sleeping.
I'm not sleeping.
Oh, he said he's doing it. Well, anyway, but here, and Charles knows how to borrow. Charles, this is where we're going. This is what we have to do. When you call Charles, what you see? You see this image. You would think he would ask my permission to steal this image from me. And so, but he has the upper part. I want the whole thing. So I want him to set up my telephone. When you call my house,
say it again, sir.
This is what you see. You see this African rising, the African Renaissance, and that's what this is all about. And it's more than just a statue. It's a live instrument inside all of the books. There's library. You can go inside and take an elevator 16 stories up to the black man, powerful thighs. He's leaning on his rock, the black woman, and he's holding his child up to God, to the future. And inside, you can take that 16-story elevator and go into the head of the black man, and 30 or 40 people can be in the head looking out on the world. And so you have a God statue, that's Jesus the Redeemer in Rio. You have a war memorial, that's the war memorial in Zimbabwe to their struggle. And it was done by the Koreans. But when the African leadership of the AU were asked to do something, President Wade of Senegal, President Obasanjo of Nigeria, and the president of South Africa, there were 10 of them. They were asked to pull together what African unity is all about and African struggle is all about. And it's about the struggle to restore the family. And so this is my symbol. In other words, I was so glad to be there. We went there with 350 people. And it is not only, and you can go inside, and they had outside, they had an exhibit of Cheikh Anta Diop's work and President Africain's work. That material is inside the monument now. So this is a once in a lifetime. It's not a war memorial, but it really speaks to what Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop said, that the rising of our consciousness would come out of the West and bounce back to Africa. And that's what it has. It's been a fantastic thing. And Nkrumah goes to the West. He goes there trying to be a good schoolboy, but he gets there and he gets the African spirit. And he was in Lincoln, but in Lincoln, there was a fellow called Philpott. He was a part of our group and out of Washington. And Philpott would go up to Lincoln and take him to Philadelphia, and Nkrumah. And so there he would meet the spirit of W.E.B. Du Bois, who had Philadelphia as a base. He did his book, The Philadelphia Negro, studying the migration out of Virginia, my home county, my mother's home county, Farmville, into Philadelphia. And so he would get that part of the African-American experience. Then he would go to Washington, and Philpott would take him up to Lincoln. He'd take him down to Washington, and he would meet the Hansberry group. Leo Hansberry, who was one of the leaders to take on this African task. And next to Leo Hansberry was Ralph Bunche, and he was a scholar interested in Africa, and he went into international. And then you had Chancellor Williams and others. And so he had a chance to get the second leg of this triangle of greatness. And then Philpott would come back another weekend and take him to New York. And that's where he met Dr. John Henry Clark and the African History Club and all those things. So, and Nkrumah got he came to be a preacher, and he left America to be a great leader of the African struggle. You know, hey, that's what it's all about.
Thank you, Baba J. I mean, who are we? We're so privileged and thankful to be a part of this monument. And like the one thing that you say, the struggle to restore our liberation is the struggle to restore the African family. So
Yes.
we want to thank you for being a part of this process. I mean, talking to you, who are we not to say we're really the blessed generation to be at your feet and listen to all your incredible work and story. So you're like, what do I say? An embodiment of all these ancestors. You've been through it. The first speaker, Baba Jume, said it, that you are a transition. You are in between the past and the future, but you
Right.
are in between now. And so we really honor you. We celebrate you. We will continue to do that. And we know that you're still going to be here, because one thing is that until you meet this dream, that's the reason why we still need guardians from elders like you. Professor
Well,
James Small, what would I say again? I mean, it's your brother, like Baba J said, you made an agreement to stay a family forever. And I think that is that agreement that all of us are tapping into that. We're also making a pact, an African pact, to say we are whether it's fraternity or what they call brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever. But like you said, we are making also this agreement to stay one family and supporting one another forever. What other thing you said? You don't charge. You never charge for anything. You only call for donations. And that is also one of that spirituality that when we turn away from putting material first, I think the calling comes even more deeper, because we're here to serve and not to collect only. So thank you so much, Baba. Thank you, Brother Charles.
We believe in one love, and then that comes out of the spirit of Marcus Garvey. And so that's what we got to understand. We can love a whole lot of other things, but we need to love this the origin of the human family, in a real way. And so thank you for all that you've done, and continue to do your work. Don't let them worry you to death so you start to get gray hair and stuff like that. Just stay on the case and say, I want to be a strong and African griot. In other words, the female griot, speaking our special truth.
Ashe,
So,
Baba.
Madase, many thanks.
Madase, Baba. Madase. Professor James Small, you've been there till the end, always powerful. I mean, what an 85 years old can sit and lecture all this time? Do you think it's going to stop anytime soon? You said it.
No, Dr. Jeffries is eternal, you know.
Yes.
You know, what I said, that each of us represent an aspect of the divine essence having the human experience. That's eternal. He is an aspect of God. That's real. That's African culture. They've got us looking somewhere else for God, and that's why we're in such confused state. But if you realize I am an aspect of the expression of the divine essence having this human experience, and then you live that the way he's lived it, that's what makes you powerful. That your word is worth 1,000 rifles, you know? And so when we understand that, really understand that, African culture is the culture of godness. There was a brother in Nigeria who wrote a book years ago on the God, the religion of Africa is the religion of godness.
Mhm.
Our culture is godness.
Right.
Everything we talk about as being the divine, that's the foundational culture of Africa itself. Because it all came from the African mind on how to live life as a human being in harmony. Kemet left us a lot of the symbolisms of that because of the dryness and the rock and the desert. But it's in the language of every African culture, you know. And so once we are clear, and I've been away from my phones for so long, but that's cool. I'm multitasking kind of person. I don't know, that's Brother George in Ghana. He's just one of my Ghanaian sons. I'll call him back later. But this thing and the teaching that Dr. Jeffries just did, the lecture he just gave just on his life, a little tiny speck of his life. He didn't even talk about the role of his wife in that 85 years of his life.
And she's still teaching. She's sleeping now because she was checking on her grades. She's teaching the Koreans, the Chinese, the South Americans. 57 years she's been teaching and loves it, you know. But we can't keep going forever. Hopefully, this trip that they're planning for Egypt will be an important milestone. In other words, this truth that we have lived on and have been nurtured by, they now have agreed is the truth. But for me, that's suspect, because they didn't call any of us in to say, look, you were right. Africa is the cradle of civilization, etc. They're going to take two parts of their great museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. They're going to take the Egyptian side in the south and the rest of the African continent in the north. And they're going to combine them. They are saying that this is one culture. No matter what period you look at, the period of the pyramid buildings or the pyramid of the Yoruba civilization or the pyramid in the Bantu civilization, they say it's all one civilization. They're showing comparisons of African art creation in the Nile with African art creation in the rest of Africa, hundreds of years apart. And they're showing the spirituality and the connectedness that we have. But I still have some question marks, you know.
They're always suspect.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to get control of the narrative,
right,
and making sure that the interpretation is what they want it to be.
Yes.
And they don't want that interpretation to fuel the healing and the growth of the mind of the African child.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to make sure that all of our information becomes the healing balm and the building blocks for the mind and consciousness of the African race, especially the children. And we have to teach them how the enemy has stolen so much of our symbolisms and got it in his museums across the world. Mm-hmm. So we must know how to take our children to those museums and interpret what they're seeing.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Well, the last little thing that I had to, and this thing is heavy. Oh, goodness. This is a heavy piece of little African art. I mean,
yeah.
But here's the beautiful thing. I have the picture of me showing it to our group in Ghana. The first time I went to Africa, I had $25 in my pocket for the whole summer. And at the end of the summer, because everything was taken care of, but you still need money to buy things. But I wasn't worried about buying things. I was worried about being there. And so I had $25 for the whole summer, and I spent 15 of it to get this elephant, and I had to take this out of here the other day because I have to put it in. But this I gave to my mother as a gift for, encouraging me to go to Africa. And this is ebony. Now this is as light as can be. This is artificial, and but the position of the elephant is significant, because when the elephant has his trunk up in the air, that's serious. And then when this is just him taking it easy. But somehow this passed down to the family. I gave it to my mother. She gave it to her niece, who was my third mother. Her mother was actually my mother's older sister, was my second mother. And then DC was the third. She took care of us. And so how my mother passed, and then DC got this, and then she passed it on to her children, and eventually it got back to me. So this is just not a normal little something. This is, and the elephant doesn't forget. That's supposed to be the key thing about an elephant. He doesn't forget. So just to have this artificial, this one is not real, but it's a substitute. But this is the real deal. This is my little partner, and to have him reunited with Rosin and I, and we got so much art, it's ridiculous. And but James, I did get a call from Dr. Ida Jones, and she said we'll be connecting in March.
Very good.
And April, and so they are still.
Explain that so she knows what that is.
When you have collections, all of our great people have saved, and they got their books and their files and stuff like that, and that they need to be. We've lost so much because we don't have this heavy tradition of preserving after the person has gone on beyond. So some of our Black schools have encouraged us to donate our archives to them. Dr. Clark took the lead. He donated 15,000 books to the complex in Atlanta, the Woodruff Library that services all of those 7 institutions. Asa Hilliard, one of our great guys, he was the best of us in terms of my peers. Nobody was more than Asa. And he came from a deep family in the South. His mother was an evangelist, and his father, grandfather, great-grandfather swam across the Mississippi to join the mother. She was sold into slavery. His wife was sold into slavery in Texas, and he was able to reunite them. And so Asa always said he comes from a special spirit of continuity and strength. And his cousin is Jake Carruthers, who opened up the Chicago school for us. In other words, teaching the Metal Nature and having a base in Chicago. Those are 2 cousins that you never see fighting, you never see in conflict. You see them working things out. And around them, a whole group of young men, and Andy Thompson and was like James and I are with each other, taking care of each other. Andy Thompson, he was taking care of Jake Carruthers. Andy was the bigger guy. Jake was the scholar, and the cousin of Andy. So that's why it's a family affair. And that's why we have to see it as a family affair and build on that.
Yes, Papa.
And that lady that he's talking about is from a big college in the South, black college, who's looking to take his collection at that college to preserve it, him and his wife.
Okay.
And the beautiful thing is that one of my best buddies in terms of Africa, John Kennard, who took care, Reverend Robinson said, look, I need you all working on my staff. There's no way in hell white people could have given us this responsibility. And he said, John Kennard, you've got to take North Africa, Africa and Southern Africa, 20 to 25 nations in that area. Len Jeffries, you have to take West Africa, Morocco, Mauritania, Senegal, down to the Gambia, Sierra Leone, Mali, on to Guinea, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Togo, Dahomey, Cameroons, all the way down to Gabon and the Congo. That was the area of my responsibility. I was responsible for the programs in each of those areas. Now, who would give young black people that responsibility? It was a black man who grew up in the bottoms of Tennessee. In other words, he grew up in filth and septic tanks failing, overflowing from the white folks who lived at the top of the hill. And when they overflowed, the mess went down into the black community. And he wrote his book, Road Without Turning. And he said he when that happened to him, and he said, this can't go on. I have to get out of here. And luckily he was able to get out. And then he went to Lincoln University, and that's how he got in the mix with Nkrumah and others. So we have to understand how these relationships work, and the material things come. Brother Smalls, folks are putting it all together, and I'm trying to do as best I can. My one nephew is a congressman, the other nephew is working on the 1610 plan or whatever it is, a wife on slavery, and black people coming to America, and the white folks don't want to believe it. They said it's a propaganda, and slavery really wasn't slavery. And Jefferson would be the first to tell them, back off. I not only had a slave plantation, I had 3 of them. And not only did I have 100, I had 600 Africans. And not only did I have them, I mean, I loved them. In fact, I designed Monticello so that there was a stairway that came up from where the African quarters were, and that one of my lady friends could come on up in the stairways. And one of them, he fell in love with her. Sally Hemings had children by her. Jefferson had children, took her to France. He wasn't hiding it. And everybody knew about it, except James and I, and the rest of us, we didn't know about it. But when I went to speak at the University of Virginia, and I'm always prepared, Harvard or wherever school, I got a special message, and I'm boom, boom, boom. So I went to the University of Virginia. I was going to deal with this Jefferson thing. So I was beating him up terribly. And then I knew about Sally Hemings. And I was going to use that as a club, say the contradiction of your great one. He was a slave master bastard. I like to give them their fullness. Slave master bastard. Well, these young people at the college, they wasn't acting the way I expected. I'm trying to, give them some punches and whatnot. And then finally, when they realized I didn't know, they said, Dr. Jeffries, we're glad you're here. We're glad you're here talking about Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. He said, the student name of our student newspaper at the university is the Sally Hemings. So these students who went to that university went through with the story of what Jefferson was all about. He was taking care of his business, and property was his thing. And they have him down as the great thinker. And so we have to.
Oh, I think Dr. Jeffries, I think Sister Felicia wants to wish you happy birthday. And
yes, and before even so had Dr. Wilbur.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes, we can hear you.
so let me let me first say this. This is beautiful. Finally seeing you, Miss Susan Tata. And I see Professor Small is representing Hoppy right there with that Hoppy hoodie. Feeling that. And there's Dr. J. Happy birthday, Dr. J.
Well, I'm happy birthday. But I tell people, I stopped having happy birthdays long ago. I celebrate the year. So I'm. This is initiating a great year, and with the work that you're doing, this sister has stepped into my house and become a part of the furniture, and the most vital furniture. The couch where you had to sleep, or in the kitchen, she's the refrigerator. She has handled my wife, and Rosin is difficult because she is a perfectionist and she likes to get things done. She's been teaching she started teach. She went to Africa before I did. She's the pioneer. She got a PhD from Yale University when they wanted her to do in the leading black, Samela Lewis, the leading black female educator. They wanted her to do her dissertation doing ing. And Rosin said, if that's what it requires for me to get a PhD, I ain't going to get it. So then they were able to give her another thing, studying black artists, instead of trying to destroy the top one that white folks know how to work us against each other. But this technology, I haven't mastered it yet. But you get Felicia in this house, and she comes in taking over. I'm in the back in the study, and I'm looking to see whether she is there. And I can't see nothing but her backside. I say, yes, she's there. She's sitting right next to my wife, working on that TV, a Zoom course, going out to the world. Rosin has a reputation in Korea and whatnot. They have a school in Korea. So the students who get their schooling, they tell her, make sure you get that Mrs. Jeffries. Dr. Jeffries, she'll give you a special class. And so it's all on TV and Zoom, and Rosin is better with the technology than I am. But if you get a problem, you can be jammed up. But with Felicia there, she starts off at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30, and she's there with my wife. And that, to make sure everything is going correctly. And then if it does, that allows Rosin to let her go take care of business, because she's a professional and she's got grown men that she's trying to deal with, her sons. And so she can't spend the whole day with Rosin. But once she gets Rosin started, then Rosin has the confidence to get a nap after 3 o'clock, after 12, what is it, 12, Felicia, 8 to 12. And then she gets a nap for a couple hours. Then she's ready to come back for a second class at 3:30. And she wants Alicia to be there, but she don't need her. She's already got her flow. And so she walks out of the house very happy, and then got the Jeffries female component going. I wonder what that damn male component is doing. He's probably in the back working on his archives. And she's right. I don't sleep. I've been finding more stuff. James Small, I found the whole Kentry project and all of the reports, including Tom Schick, who used to be at City College, and everything, including the letters from Carnegie Corporation.
Let me interfere once, because I know Miss Susan's already run over time, haven't you?
Oh, why didn't she say something? She should have said, Dr. J.
Too gracious. But I was calling so Felicia could meet her face to face.
Oh, okay.
And Susan, she's in the middle of Harlem right now on the way home.
So, I think,
so I know you have to bring it to an end. It's been a beautiful few hours. And Dr. J, that was a beautiful lecture on your history. I know that's just a small piece of it.
Yes.
It's a very beautiful lecture.
I spent.
We also had Dr. Wade Nobles was also here, and he left.
He was?
Yes, he was here, and then he left shortly because he said, he wanted to be a part of it. Yeah, he ran out of Barry or something like that. Then we also had King Bongane was also here, Queen Ningone II of Gabon. All of them were in the lobby, and they are sending greetings, and they were detected or something like that. Yes.
Well, Wade is, again, a story, a book in himself. And it's not just him, it's his wife. he has a wife who had an illness, and that didn't stop them. They are still going around the world as a team. And when we had the big conference in Dakar, that James took a lead in telling the folks that you got to get Jeffries involved and whatnot, and he'll help get the scholars and whatnot. Because one of our people dropped out. He was mad. So James said, look, you better get in there and make sure that this thing gets going. So we were able to get, Wade and his wife went, and Wade made a presentation. Obanga made a presentation. Renoko made a presentation. And then when it came to the women, Wade's wife opened it up, and she was so powerful and so strong, you know, and she's in a wheelchair, but none of that reflects on her. She was able to do her thing. And so after her came a Senegalese medical professor. And so she had to go high because Vera had gone so high. And then Rosalind came in after that. And so she had to go high. So they lifted the roof in terms of this great center and putting out that. And Wade and her have a special relationship of the best African working together, and their daughters and sons and whatnot. And one of the sons I adopted years ago as a godfather. And so he now wants to help me set up a trust. He said, you can set up your little foundations, you can do this and that, but if you don't have a trust, all the stuff that you all have is not properly protected. A trust is a much deeper document. And a will deals with you and the state. A trust deals with you and the world. And so he's worked with trust before, so he's going to be helpful. So you get these Charleses and these others, and Brother Reggie, and you get Brother Smalls. He got his little Nadja. Now she's been. I'm looking at her baby right up here. That baby's been there, and she's there with Queen T. She's there with the symbols of Kemet, etc. And so I don't know what to do. I mean, I talk to these, just like my nephew Hassan. He's got these 3 little angels, and I wake up in the morning saying I had a good night's rest, and I go to bed, you know. And one day they called me. When the little 7-year-old called me from Ohio, I almost fell out of my chair. And they want to see Uncle Lenny. They want to talk to Uncle Lenny. So these are the things that really we have to emphasize family in an enormous way.
Let me come back in again. Do you have anyone in the studio now, Sister Tata?
I have to check. It's as if, let me see if I could get. I mean, it's amazing. How are we going to understand even Sister Felicia that was here if you didn't really just give that quick overview, or what Baba Nobles and the wife did? So all this just a part and pieces of what we're trying to put together. Let me check if anybody is still in the studio or left. But it has been a wonderful, wonderful evening, and a way to share and celebrate your happy day, Earth Day, or your legacy and your work. The best thing to just sit at the foot and listen to all these stories.
Right.
You know.
Well, you have to call Wade, James, and tell him that if I had known he was there, we would have gone on a whole another thing with all the stuff that Wade has done with us and whatnot. So I'm telling you. So you're wonderful. We've got to make sure you're protected.
No, there's nobody in the lobby anymore.
Okay.
Yes. Like most of the time, it kicks, like Sister Felicia has been kicked out. You know. And but of course, no, they all were here and showed their face, like we say in the African in the village setup. They showed their face. They were present here, and they sent their regards and greetings. And yeah, I think most of them were also on other meetings, and they just connected shortly, you know, to share.
Nobles, listen, I've got Dr. Nobles on the phone.
Hey.
Oh, okay.
So you can speak, Wade.
Okay, who am I speaking to?
Susan, Tata, Dr. Jeffries, and of course myself, and the rest of the world.
Well, I came on for a quick minute. I couldn't stay on the line. I left a message.
Yeah, she told me.
In celebration of Dr. J. And I just want to put on record that while he was speaking to all those greats, he's great. That we are better off for having his colleague, his support, and his friend. Dr. J is the realize that he is. And I want to add voice to celebration of him circling one more time again in 25 days. And he is 3 times great because of his partnership with Bob. Rob makes him 2 times great.
You're right. You're right.
All right, sir. I just want to make sure that you did get to touch the spirit.
Yes.
I think that's in Sucker Sum Sum.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, lots of love to everybody, Wade.
We're going to be mend the fracturing of our consciousness, the shattering of our identity.
Yes. Shattered consciousness and fractured identity. Yes, yes. Wow.
Dr. J, 3 times great.
Well,
go ahead, Dr. J.
No, I'm saying that it's truly a family affair. And when I'll never forget you, and in Oakland when I was there, and then you were going to take me out to the airport. So I was ready to say goodbye to your wife. And no, Wade picked his wife up, took her out to the car, put her in the passenger seat, and then he told me, come on, you get into the back seat here. When I saw that, I said, that's serious. That's serious. This brother is serious. And he's been like that. Of course, she gives him extra power, staying strong herself. Oh, my goodness, Sister Vera. And so if you don't have these female components complementing the male component is not complete. You got to have that female component.
We can't be whole without those complementing with our spouses, those we love.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And Dr. J, you've been the model of that. You and Razo.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, we've been constantly getting an infusion coming from the continent. Like Brother Smalls was saying that I had Akinjob and Kameralai that I brought in. But then we brought in Obanga. He was in Philadelphia at one point. Later, he came in and he went to San Francisco because you and others said, let's bring that brother in. And he became a part of the family in real ways, Obanga. And now we have this other brother, and Ketsia, and he's in Ghana, and he's another one of the linkages and contacts. So, hey, it's good, and we need it because these. I'm sorry to say, these white folks and their partners are crazy. This Trump business and all of this mess that they are talking is unbelievable. But it shouldn't be unbelievable. We had to go through enslavement and dehumanization processes with them. So we shouldn't be surprised. We need to open up our eyes and say, look, it's as real as it was when they killed my grandfather. My grandfather was murdered by the Klan in 1917. And I have his tombstone and whatnot. His tombstone was an obelisk. He was the head of the lodge. So that, but because he lived, he had 13 kids. So he was able to sustain them. He was the leader of that community. He wasn't, white folks were jealous. And so we have to understand because they had organized their farmers, their farms. Poor white folks came with a few bales of cotton, and then they stood around to see what the black people have. Well, the black people brought in truckloads. The Browners have a 300-acre land with their cotton fields. And so you had the Browners, the Jeffries, the Maddocks, and all. Interesting, we had Maddocks, not Elliot, not Maddox. Elliot Maddox, yes, he was a baseball player. He saved for the Yankees and the Mets. But Maddox is a part of the mix of families in that part of Georgia that they had land. They built the schoolhouse. They built their own homes. They handled their brick making. They handled their electricity and stuff. The schoolhouse is still on the hill that they sent their kids to the best possible schooling that to get. They made sure they had good teachers in that school. So we have to understand we stand on a rock of our people's persistence and resistance to oppression. And so we have to share that rock with others. And you are key and crucial. And so I want you to stay healthy and as beautiful as you can. And then continue your work. Continue your work. God bless you. The African ancestors. Okay.
Okay, Dr. Nobles, we're going to try to let Sister Susan get locked down. She knows she's over time. She doesn't know how to be a closer, so I'm trying to be a closer for her. Yeah,
I'm glad you did what you're doing.
yes, sir.
Thank
right.
you. Thank you, Baba. Thank you. Yes.
Brother.
All right.
Peace
I think, Brother Smalls, would you want to conclude?
Well, I think Dr. Nobles and Dr. Jeffries just concluded. So,
Okay.
other than
All right.
just to thank you, thank Dr. J, thank Sister Dr. J, for the life they've given to all of us who were their students and the opportunities they gave us to have platforms to speak our truth as we understood it. And that I'm sorry that we didn't get some of the kings in and the queen, but they know we love them thoroughly and completely. And as we love you, Sister Susan, and the work that you're doing and the platform that you have developed and trying to expand, you've heard all over the world. I get calls from the Caribbean, from Canada, from Europe, from everybody about Susan Tata. So you're reaching the world. You know, you're reaching the world. So peace and blessings. And again,
Madasi P, many thanks.
Thank
Lots
you.
of love and
Thank you, Baba.
respect. Okay, now.
Mandase, Baba. Thank you to all of our viewers and the family that also stood in and have been here with us. Like it's a kind of a keep wake, you know, for the elders. I mean, that's how we pay that respect. That's the harmony and the spirit of family that we're building here. I mean, we could stay here the whole night. What were we doing in ancient Egypt? We only listened to these stories, our stories of our elder lived through and how we have to live. And that's how we pass that knowledge over. We never were a culture who only wrote books, but we pass our story from generation to generation. And we're the privileged ones to be a part of this living monument and these legends and sharing this. And what we do, we just produce this history. And we're going to live here. Our children will listen to them. They would see us, you know. And so it's very important that we get that patience and that our ancestors are giving us, you know, that spirit to stay to this. Nothing is too much when it comes to listening to our elders. That is the best gift in Africa, or in the village we say that's the oil that, you know, oils our elbows is the elders. Yes. Right? So when we gather at the fires and we listen to you, but unfortunately, how many of us do that now because of the kind of situations we are in this? So celebrating you and listening to you tonight, even if we had to go on the whole night, that would be a very, very big honor for us. And next time, Baba J, we're going to have you to talk about, you know, the legacy of your wife, like you said. So, but for now, I want to thank you and wish you all the blessings and good night to all of you and to all the family that was present. And we see us tomorrow with Ambassador Tony Jaja, all the way from the Horn of Africa. Thank you so very much. Peace and blessings. Good night.
Lots of love. That's strict. Good luck.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
Bye. Good night.
You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherlands calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.